If you were to ask 1,000 sim racers to name 4 of the greatest racetracks in Europe, they probably would mention something along the lines of Spa-Francorchamps, the Nordschleife, Le Mans and Monza. Well, you know what? They are the next 4 rounds in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. But also, of course, we kick our coverage off with the Porsche All-Star Series. My name is Will Vincent. I'm joined as ever by Matt Trivette. You might know him as Sadakis. And Matt, we start our journey of European racetracks with one of the greatest elevation racetracks in the world, Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what a 4 lineup tracks, or as you mentioned them, we have left. What a great finish to the season. Interestingly enough, I don't like Spa as much. I'm the one outlier, and I'll say it now so you can shoot me. It's only because I'm slow here. But the elevation's incredible, and in fact, there's a little map we're going to show you of the track a little bit later on that's really highlights that and emphasizes how this entire circuit sprawls through the landscape so well. A lot of old school circuits do, and I've always said the faster the car you're in, the more fun Spa is, which is kind of nice because for the All-Stars, they're in the fastest car of the season so far.
You don't like Spa. I don't like the Nordschleife. We both like
Circuit I love the Nordschleife. Yes, yeah, we can settle on that. Circuit de la Sarthe is fine because it's got a lot of straightaways that make up for my mistakes. So
let's have a look then at the schedule. We've already been across the Americas. We've been to a couple of tracks in Europe as well, but it's all Europe from here on in. The 911 RSR GTE is our car of choice for this round at Spa. The Nürburgring Nordschleife in 2 weeks' time, and Circuit de la Sarthe Le Mans in about a month's time from now. We will not yet tell you what the procedure is going to be for Monza on April 24, but you do want to continue watching our coverage as we'll be announcing that one to you very, very soon. But 4 great racetracks, and of course, moving to the RSR, we needed to change things up a little bit. So instead of standing start, as we've had all season long, we now move to rolling start. Still a fixed setup, but there's one thing that you'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, Matt. That is that we've made the races a little bit longer. 20 minutes now for the sprint race, 25 minutes for the feature.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a great thing because the racing has been excellent in the All-Star series, and we've seen so many great names come through. We've got a few more joining us today as well. And yeah, the RSR is an excellent car. Of all the GT cars in iRacing, it's the one that I get on with the best. I think it's very good to drive. You can really attack it. A lot more downforce than they've had all season. So even though it's a baseline setup, there's still a lot more to work with in terms of corner speed. And I think that's perfect, like I say, at Spa, because you've got a lot of high-speed sweeping corners that you can really take advantage of the car with.
I was playing a quick game there of Name That Flag, and I think I've got all but 2 of them. We've got our standings up on your screen, though. Emily Jones continues to lead the way in the championship, 246 points, eking out that advantage over Dan Suzuki, 48 points back in the championship. Jaroslav Honzik is in 3rd place, Xavier Sanchez in 4th. Worth noting, we've got a couple of new people, as you mentioned, Matt, to the series. The biggest name of the lot, former IndyCar driver Tony Kanaan, but we've also got Dave Cameron, better known to many people as Dave Cam, and we've got ourselves from the country of France as well. We have Hydro, whose name is Julian Cisaboris. So more drivers, and that's the reason why we have extended these races out just a little bit, because let's be honest, Emily Jones has had some great races, same with Matt Campbell and others over the course of the season, coming from the rear of the field. But with now potentially 17 drivers taking part in these races, it would get more and more difficult to allow the drivers to work through the field if we had kept it to the shorter race distances.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question about it. And I think that having a guy like TK come in, just to touch on him a bit, is very cool as well, because he's someone that a year ago only was getting into sim for the first time. He's taken it very seriously. During COVID, obviously, a lot of the real-life drivers did come over that hadn't before and thought they'd give it a go, and there were some cool races between them that everyone was a fan of, and some of the guys stayed with it, some of them didn't, and Tony's one that definitely stuck with it. He was a bit of a slower start than others, but he's come up to speed a lot. He streams on Twitch all the time now, and really cool to see him here in the All-Star race.
Yeah, we do have to note, for the sake of our lawyers, if nothing else, that Tony Kanaan is running as an influencer, not affiliated to any of the Porsche Works drivers that we've seen so far this season. got the double A car of Jimmy Broadbent on track, and he's reverted now in this RSR to that beautiful kind of like chrome-like red livery that we've seen him participate in so many of these endurance races on. So familiar paint job at the very least for Jimmy B now.
Yeah, definitely a car that he's in a little more often than the others, obviously. We don't get to call him Minty Boy anymore, which is disappointing in its own right, but very, very sharp-looking livery. I love that sort of chromatic, metallic finish to it. Looks really, really good on this car, especially with the black lines and the diffuser on the back. I think real cars have diffusers. I wish mine had one. They just look so cool.
A couple more notes, by the way, while we're talking about drivers who are and who are not running. It's worth noting that we are not going to be seeing Quick Gabriela Jakova in this race, and that's mainly because of the fact that due to travel restrictions, quarantining, etc. across Europe, she's not able to participate. She's currently under COVID-19 kind of isolation protocols, and also no Porsche Works drivers this weekend. And the reason for that, really, Matt, is because we've got the Porsche drivers in full training now, because we're very close, for example, to the 12 Hours of Sebring, one of Porsche's biggest endurance events of the year.
And one of the most physically demanding. That place is bumpy. I mean, people call it bumpy in sim, but I've had the pleasure of standing trackside. Actually, too close to the trackside, get yelled at by a marshal. Let's not talk about that. But very trackside under the bridge in turn 17. And my God, every car is just on edge through there. So definitely a physically demanding track, especially for an endurance race. There he is, Brazilian livery. Looks pretty good, actually.
It does. Turning it on, number 14 car. The car number that he was using when he drove for AJ Foyt in his last run in the IndyCar series. You talk about being too close to a racetrack, by the way. I've actually got footage of TK and other IndyCar drivers crossing the yard of bricks, and I was way too close to the racetrack. But they don't seem to care that much down there until you actually get to race day. 6 minutes then remaining in qualifying for our 2 events in the Porsche All-Stars series. And for those of you who are new to watching, hello. If you're wondering where some of the top sim races in the world are, don't worry, they will be coming to you soon. This is the, I hate to say the word support series, but this is kind of the warm-up series for the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing, which will be immediately following these events. So you don't need to go anywhere. You won't need to refresh your sets as soon as our coverage of these finishes. We'll be right into coverage of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. There is Tony Kanaan then working himself through Blanchimont right now, down towards the bus stop chicane. It's been reconfigured a few times. I'm not going to lie to you, actually, Matt. This is possibly one of my least favourite versions of the bus stop. I really used to love the one that looked like an actual bus stop that they used to use kind of late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, you swing to the left, not to the right, and obviously they did this for a number of reasons. I think there was some noise complaints for the circuit as well, and there was something about adding a more hillside in, correct me if I'm wrong, but also that just a safety and slow down, ability to get them into the pit lane a little bit more controlled. You can see that big area behind the wall, the runoff. That's essentially where the old bus stop was. You'd go left, right, left onto the front straight. So I kind of agree. I like that. I felt like it actually complemented the cars a little more because you were carrying so much speed through Blanchimont, and it kind of set you up on the outside of the corner, and you were already there. Now you've got to bring the car back over to the left. Not a huge deal because it's pretty stable there. It's a lot slower, this new chicane, compared to the old one. I say was new. I mean, what was this? 12 years ago now, at least, if not more. But it is a lot more of a slower chicane than the old one used to be.
Just been having a look there at Max XM. I will be needing that track map of the Nordschleife in 2 weeks' time, hopefully with some corner names on there as well. And we've lost one Minty Green car, but we still have one. It's Emily Jones, who is on 4th place right now on track with 2:14.366. That's about 0.2 of a second slower than Dave Cam. Interesting to note, we saw it on the screen earlier on, Matt, that all these drivers are using a fixed setup, and in any fixed setup series, eventually the drivers do start complaining, wanting more wing or less wing. Because there's been an iRacing build week, the people that do all the work behind the series, they said, we're going to keep it simple for this race. And, well, they've kept it simple, but what it does mean is that the run on the exit, dragging on down to the kind of lovely right, left, right that you see at the end of the Camel straightaway, that's going to be more interesting in terms of drafting, because they're barely going to be able to track things here by themselves, but they will get a nice little pull when they are running in the draft.
Yeah, it's also really cool for those of you watching because this week it is the straight baseline setup. As you say, build week, they didn't want to complicate things too much. There wasn't a lot of time to sort that kind of thing. It means that you guys can literally jump in this car on this track and get a direct comparison because it is the baseline setup that all of you at home will have. So if you fancy kind of putting yourself against the times that these guys are doing, the 214 ranges we're seeing right now, Dave Cam actually sitting on provisional pole, you can do exactly that. So kind of a cool comparison. But you're right, the drafting is going to be interesting because you essentially have a draft gear. It's going to be like ovals.
We say hello and welcome back in some regards to Dave Cam into the series. Dave Cameron took part in the first of these all-star events that we did that was part of the concluding round of 2020 Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. Haven't seen him until now this season, but you know, they sometimes say good things come to those who wait. 214.120 for that 786 car right now, heading themselves into La Com. That right-hander, you can use the curb quite a bit through that, but one thing, again, we're going to talk sim racing tech for a moment. That was brought up in the race control briefing. For this series, you are allowed 15 incident points before you will get yourselves a drive-through penalty. You and I both know very well, Matt, at this track, it is unforgiving when it comes to incident points. We're going just a little bit wide.
Absolutely. There's some spots that I curse at time and time again. I mean, I'll name a few. The double gauche, as they call it in the actual name, but obviously the left-hander after Brookseal downhill setting up is one that's really bad. If you don't get the turn in on the exit, you're bad. Coming out of Lacombe's, the exit on the left can get you a few times. There's a few spots that are definitely brutal for 1Xs, and then you add in contact, that's 4X. It adds up really quickly in some of these races when you're hard on it.
Last time out, we saw Borges. He was basically in a full tuxedo. Today, it is the red tie around the head. Incredible looking kind of t-shirt.
Samurai.
Yeah, a complete change as we say hello to Matt Malone in the number 83 car. Matt Malone, I don't actually see him having set a time so far in that number 83 car. As he comes into the bus stop chicane, right-hander over the curb. Got to be careful. You can use that sleeping policeman curb to help rotate the car, but it can cost you time if you're just inches too far to the left. Past the start-finish line, he comes, and do we get a time yet? P8, by the way, from Matt Malone, as we turn over to Dan Suzuki, second place in the championship right now, and he is third place in qualifying, just under 0.2 of a second back from the rear of Dave Cam. With 35 seconds remaining in qualifying, it's going to be mighty close when he gets to the start-finish line in time. In that 48 car, he might just about be able to do so.
This is, it's interesting. This is the closest I think the times have been all year, and I wasn't sure the RSR was going to give us that. I thought that might be the Cayman, but everyone's pretty much within the 214s, down to 216 at the back, but it's so close between positions 1 and 11, and this could be a really, really good race, Will.
Emily Jones just snuck up into third place, and I think we might actually have had a change for pole position. That might well have been Dan Suzuki going to the top. We just need to wait to have the cycle tick over, but that was an incredible last couple of moments of qualifying. Then we will get that starting grid up on your screen for you momentarily, but I saw so many changes, and indeed, yes, Dan Suzuki right at the marker, moving up to pole position. Dave Cameron alongside him then on the front row of the grid. Borges in third place. Emily Jones and Borja were scrapping it out in the last moments of qualifying. Yaroslav Honzik in fifth place with Tony Kanaan in P number 6. Then you got Xavier Sanchez and Matt Malone on row 4, Mattia Vaca and Jimmy Broadbent on row 5, Pierre-Olivier Valette and Will Ford in row number 6. Row number 7 will be James West, or Gamer Muscle, and Amir Thacker. And then at the rear of the field, you got Julian Cisaburas and Maxime Bushman. That was an incredible last 30 seconds of qualifying. We just see the timings going up and down there, Matt.
Yeah, very, very awesome to see. I mean, TK had it in practice. He looked the fastest, but in qualifying, everyone put in a great lap at the front. And I think, like I say, this is going to be an awesome race to see, especially when they're this close. And you mentioned it, the drafting is going to be a huge factor. I mean, big train down the Kemmel Straight. Potentially, you don't want to be in the lead. This could be exactly what the PESC guys talk about, where you kind of want to be sitting in second with that draft gear.
So for the first time this season, we're going to see ourselves a rolling start in terms of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. They will retain standing starts all season long, but because we're in a GTE car, we felt it makes sense to do a GTE-esque start. And there's a look then from the rear of the iRacing pace car. And race control, they did tell all drivers in the briefing coming up into this race that they need to wait for the green flag to be waved before hitting that noisy pedal. So no anticipating the starts here. You've got to wait. It's just as if we were running in some form of long-term endurance race championship. Pace car is in. I think they might have missed the memo a little bit there, but they have got themselves grouped up nicely. Now the green lights are on. Now the green flag is out. Now we get going. And Tony Kanaan's doing just what he used to do in IndyCar, straight to the outside in towards turn number 1.
Great start from it. Rolling starts, you can definitely leave a bit of a gap and get a bit more of a run. Even though you don't jump the flag per se, you're just rolling that little bit quicker. You're in a better gear range, and TK nails it. They all get through the first corner. La Source, tight to do, but they make it. Now it's into Radion, actually.
Yes, and we've got to say, after Eau Rouge always comes Radion. Up the hill they come for the first time. This is going to be where we get to see that drafting and see how that works for the first time. Number 56 car then, looking to the outside of TK. And you see, this is what I meant. You can go side by side. You can get some drafting. Car going very wide there. And that will bunch the mid part of your field back up. And as I said, that was the number 56 car doing so. And they're still going at it. Right at the front of your field, Borges Arzo is a driver on a mission right now, but it's Emily Jones now on his inside as they go through Rivage or Bruxelles. Call it what you will. This corner, no longer Speaker's Corner or No Name Corner, officially the Jackie X Corner.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Jackie X, and that's one of the places that you can get an X. Emery was out very wide on the exit, that AstroTurf, which can be quite slippery in itself. But, looks like contact in the back. Who do we lose in that one? Might be Rye that's going down the timing screen. Yes, It is.
So, Matthias Wacker there, number 9 car, not a happy bunny, and right down the rear of your field.
Yeah, missing the rear wing on that one, too. Yeah. That's going to affect him quite a bit.
And Will Ford, the number 4 car, Boosted Media, also already 12 seconds back, so he must have had some issues at the start of this race too. But we're now on the exit of Stavelo 2. As they work themselves the second fastest part of the racetrack. It is Dan Suzuki leading, but importantly, he's got himself a 0.6 of a second advantage already. A beautiful camera angle there through Blanchimont as we see our field traverse through. But Dan Suzuki, a good start to this race over Dave Cam, Tony Kanaan 3rd, then you've got yourself Emery in 4th, Porsche Arzo rounding out your top 5, but it's still all to play for, and there is a train coming. This is what some of these drivers were worried about by this flick setup. You'd end up in a train-like situation, but it keeps the racing close.
Well, and the Kemmel Straight might change this quite a bit. I think with the drafting, I think it's very possible. We're going to look back at exactly what happened to Rye and how unfolded for him as they turn into the double left-hander. Very tricky corner to get right. Got to nail the apex. A lot of people run wide in the edges to tap. 2 into 1, that high speed, and I think that's where he lost the wing. It may not have been obvious, but I think there was contact as the camera we were on board with DePelio made contact on the way by.
Yeah, indeed. Number 64 car coming into contact. There's a lot of smoke there as they work through towards Lacombe on this, our second lap. The laps, of course, we got 3 races in a row with very long laps in this part of the season. Here at Spa, Nordschleife, but then, of course, at Circuit de la Sarthe. But at the front of your field, Dave Cam has closed back up to the rear of Dan Suzuki. It's now only about 1/3 of a second as they work on the exit of Jackie X Corner down towards Pouan once again. And Tony Kanaan 4th place. Just to give you an update, Matthias Wacker is still circulating on track, but he is 25 seconds back. I'm just thinking at this stage, he's hoping to try and bring that car to the end. Of course, as it stands, with the inverse grid, he will have himself the front of the field for our feature race coming up, of course, immediately after this one. But I'm hoping we can go on board with Dave Cam here, because I want to see what this pull is going to be like as they exit Stavelo Part 2 and work themselves through Blanchimont down towards the bus stop chicane, because he's really now in that dirty air, but he's getting that toe. Gap down to 1/10 of a second. Your single file for the most part through Blanchimont, and it will take a bold move down the inside into the bus stop chicane. In fact, Dave Cam trying around the outside, hoping to do the over-under, but just falling back into line for the moment.
It can be done. It's very tricky. You've got to be pretty far along and open up the corner a lot under braking to manage to hold the second apex. But yeah, not a huge draft, but definitely noticeable. TK is going to be in the benefit this time as well, because he'll have both cars in front of him to work with. So should be a tight run up Kemmel Straight. The front five starting to break away a little bit from Yardier, who sits in 6th place behind. We look down at Dave Cameron, who's in 2nd place, focused on the top screen, and obviously the man leading is on the left screen below as well. Yeah, definitely something to watch. A little wide already on that time for Dave Cameron, so I don't know if he'll get quite the same run. This could be TK's chance. Now, does he defend or not? That's the big question.
As there is going to be a little bit of defensive driving being played there by Dave Cam in towards Lecom. And it almost looks like there's going to be a bit of a tap there between the two of them, but they all stay single file through Lecom. From race control, Tony Kanaan will be investigated for potentially jumping the start after the race. I did say how he did just like he used to do in IndyCar, going straight to the outside. Remember, he had a fantastic run at Iowa once. He took 7 drivers in lap 1, but it is going to be under investigation.
It's such a gray area for rolling starts. It's tough because I've been on both sides of it. You know, you're waiting for the green, you're trying to play the good guy, you're holding an RPM range, and then sometimes you're just creeping, and one row's going slightly different pace than another. It just works out that you're going a little bit faster than the row in front of you. It doesn't necessarily mean you jump the start, so it's going to be tough to get that call right.
It is. One thing I will add, I know that Tony Kanaan wasn't present for the driver's briefing earlier on, but as I always say, ignorance is not an excuse for bringing you updates in that one, if and when a penalty is applied a little bit later on in our webcast. But for the time being, it is Suzuki still leading from Dave Cam, from Tony Kanaan, from Emery, from Porsche Zazo. And Emery is just seeming as though she's happy and content running in 4th place. But more importantly, just outside of that dirty air, looking at the Vodafone onboard of the number 14 car, Tony Kanaan, and there's a battle going on out front for the race lead between Dave Cam and Dan Suzuki, and Dave Cam has got the inside line into La Source. If he can just stay alongside, he will have the line. And is Dan Suzuki going to give up the corner to protect 2nd place? Well, he's having to go around the outside, and this will allow Tony Kanaan now to go side by side with Suzuki as they work towards Eau Rouge. We're on board with Dan Suzuki right now, still side by side. Tony Kanaan decides as though he wants to just get off of the noisy pedal for the time being. Dave Cam to the race lead, Dan Suzuki 2nd, but now Dan Suzuki looks as though he might get a good run on the exit of Radion, up the Kemmel straightaway, and side by side. Look at that toe, look at that side drafting. Yeah,
and look behind. TK's trying to figure out which hole in the air is the better one to draft into as he's trying to keep a run going. What a battle. I love this new livery from Dan Suzuki as well. Just quick note on that. But it's not done. Dave Cam over-under gets the cutback. He's going to use a lot of curb, which can cause a 1X. And I think he would have got one at the end of Blanchimont at the last lap as well, because he really wanted to get a run to start this battle off back to the lead. Well done from Dave Cam. Quick note, because I haven't had time to say it with all the action, but Cyanide's back this week, which is great because he was off 2 weeks ago, was under the weather, and last week he had that unexploded bomb and had to be evacuated from his new home. So great to see him back with us and running quite well right now down on 11th.
Yes, and just to let those of you who weren't here 2 weeks ago, that is a true fact. There was literally unexploded ordnance from World War II, and he was within basically the zone in which they had to exclude people. So that's why he wasn't here a couple of weeks ago. Great to see him back running in 11th place right now in that number 13 car. And they said that it was going to be boring with the baseline set up in a big race at Spa. It's anything but, as we're now on board of Emily Jones in the number 51 car, leading the championship, of course. It is worth noting that we are running a championship, but it's not actually the championship which is paying out prizes. It is the results that come from the feature race, and the drivers, they're not getting the money themselves. It goes to their community, Matt.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome way to let the influencers work. And awesome battle at the front again. Dan Suzuki tries to go to the inside on Dave Cam. Can't quite make it stick. We saw a puff of smoke. They do have ABS in these cars, but it's limiting. It's not an invasive ABS, as I would call it. So you're still going to get very minor micro lockups. A little tap that time. I think TK might have just got into the back of Dan Suzuki, and he goes from P1 a lap ago down to now potentially P5 when this is all said and done.
That was starting to look about as messy as trying to get around Junction 7 of the M6 in rush hour.
I was going to say.
Into the wall, Tony Kanaan. And that is going to be terminal. I always say in these cars, if you hit at the front, you hit at the rear, there might be a fighting chance you can continue. But that angle, 45 degrees perpendicular to the wall, down at Radiar, that looks as though that could be race over for Tony Kanaan.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I was about to say too wide into Eau Rouge is usually a recipe for disaster, especially when they're both not willing to give anyone room and try and carry as much speed as possible. So Tony comes out worse for wear on that one. Super unfortunate situation, and yeah, we'll see how he recovers from here. But again, let's have the reverse race coming up. I'm trying to see exactly where he's fallen to on my timing screen. So he's down in 11th, and yeah, I'm not sure if he's still running. So we'll see if he can maintain position, but that's going to change things at the front considerably. Dave Cam's got a bit of a gap, and suddenly Emily Jones again finds herself in a fantastic position.
She does, and I would love to see a replay of that. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, we had an amazing replay. Emily Jones through turn 4 at Montreal. I've got a feeling that she was right there having to make a split-second decision once again. And I was building up to the point saying it was turning into a proverbial traffic jam. All the way from the bus stop chicane down through La Source, it seemed to be as though one driver's locking up, one driver's just having that little small issue, bunching those drivers closer and closer together, as we're going to get ourselves a Vodafone Replay in just a moment's time of this one. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this one. Here we are, Vodafone Replay. We're on board with Tony Kanaan in the number 14 car. We start off going into La Source, and this is that little tap that you saw, and Matt just talked about it with Dan Suzuki. That's what caused the first bunch up together. Now, as they work down towards Eau Rouge, that is going to be Emily Jones alongside coming into Eau Rouge, and it looks like TK, in some regards, actually was trying to just move Emily just closer and closer and closer and closer to the wall. Not Michael Schumacher-esque, as he's did once or twice in the past, but yeah, racing incident, I think, for the most part. But we all know, Matt, 2 into 1 in Eau Rouge Radio doesn't always go.
Yeah, it's not. You got to lift so much. I mean, you need the whole corner to carry as much speed as these guys do, and you need to down the Kemmel Straight. So, unfortunate situation. He was lucky as well not to be collected coming back across the circuit. Just enough of a gap after the first group of cars went by. More contact, though. This time, Emery's going to be overtaken. It's Borazazo that's going to finally work his way back toward the front. Remember, he was battling TK on lap 1 and then got kind of shuffled out of the pack. So, slight tripping over each other, but good move. Done. Down the inside, and he's now on the chase. Dave Cam is now 1.7 seconds ahead, by the way, so he's breaking away from this. And Dan Suzuki, maybe a bit of tires coming away from him because he's not really on the pace. He's actually fallen down, just looking at his last lap time, 2 seconds off last lap.
That's a very interesting point to note about tires. Of course, in these GTE cars, we know that some drivers will run the tires of 2, 3, depending on the track, maybe even 4 hours at a time. There are many different ways of driving a GTE car, and they're not always as well suited to being blasted full pelt for 20-25 minutes at a time. But when you do try to do so, if you overheat those tires, it can become really tough really quickly. And Dan Suzuki looks like he was pushing. We're getting another Vodafone Replay. This one is Porsche Zazo, and this is that pass then over Emily Jones into that car. A little bit of pushing between the two of them there, but aggressive. But Porsche finds his way past up into second place. I've got no qualms with that one, though. That was just tough, hard racing. Yeah,
that's fair. He was fully alongside, and it was actually Emery on the outside that potentially pinched, but I'd call that a racing incident. That's fair game entirely, and the hunt resumes. Look how much the rest of the pack has closed in, though. The battle for 5th, I mentioned it when TK went through. There was a massive gap kind of between 5th place back to 6th. Well, now, with everything that's been going on, the squabbling at the front, that group's closing in considerably. In fact, Jimmy Broadbent there, DePilio's on the back of it as well, and just behind you can see as well Yardier, who's not quite at the same pace, but is able to hang with these guys just enough that with everything, I mean, a bit of drafting, he could find himself in this battle in no time. As we're going to get another draft battle down the Kemmel Straight, it's Emery that's on the attack this time.
And she's going to go to the outside line, which, of course, will then give you the inside line into the second part of Le Com. I've seen this one work so many times, side by side. And this is it. You just try to overshoot the first part. That gives you the inside for the second. Now, even if you don't make the move here, you then still get a good run on the run down into Ravage. And the outside of Ravage, because it's cambered, you can go around the outside. And that's exactly what Emily Jones does. And at this point, she can now just take her normal line into the Jackie X corner. That was textbook Spa racing. Because of the way this racetrack is, you basically don't have to give up after one corner because it does cut back on itself, inside, outside. A true good race at Spa will know exactly where they can place their car off the racing line. And in a sprint race like this, where it doesn't get as dirty as you would in, for example, in a 24-hour race, you can make those types of moves.
Absolutely. And I love your point about the off-camera-ness of Ravage, because you definitely can hold that outside. Even when you're running solo, there's a few different lines you can take into it depending on how your car's set. It's all about the exit, really, down the hill. So good race shaping up. We saw in the background down Kemmel that time as well, Jimmy Broadbent having a look at Matt Malone. So two very profitable YouTubers going wheel to wheel for a bit of content, but I'm sure there's more than that between them.
I like the fact that you're appreciative of my analysis today. As we're on board with Dan Suzuki, number 48 car. As Emily Jones and Porsche also have been scrapping for position, it has brought Dan Suzuki back into players. That's a big lock up there by Porsche Zaza, the Spanish driver, in the number 56 car. On board, Vodafone on board, Dan Suzuki down into La Source, and it looks as though Dan Suzuki's in a good place to maybe have a run up the top of this hill. I was going to say, Matt, don't expect this level of detailed analysis when we get to the North Cypher in 2 weeks' time.
I got you covered, don't worry.
I've driven about 10 laps around that racetrack. I know certain corners, and that's about it.
In sim or in real life?
In sim, of course.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, it takes a lot more than 10 to learn that place, for sure.
I'm still owed a lap around the track by iRacing, not going to lie to you, from a promise that was made to me many moons ago. I'm going to cash it in one day, as Dan Suzuki really does get that draft, and it is a huge draft. Lucy just joining us, we did say, by yourself, you basically will be topping off in 5th gear, not really getting any benefit going up into 6th, but what we see in the draft, you're really getting close to the limiter in 6th map, and that's what's giving you that extra, almost 10 kilometers an hour down the middle part of the Kemmel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that gearing is, like I say, it's almost like IndyCar where you've got a draft gear that's just going to give you a little bit more range and a little bit more top end. Sanchez catching up to the back of them right now, which is definitely good to see as we look further back. Still Matt Malone just ahead of Jimmy Broadbent, so not quite able to get that done, Jimmy. But he looks pretty nonetheless in that scarlet red, that metallic red we talked about. Nonetheless, this battle, again, at the front, it's Dan Suzuki that's trying to close back in on Borazazo, who's been up and down. His consistency's not quite been the same, but he's definitely been battling. Personal best last lap for Emery, a 14.9, but Dave Camp's done a 14.2, so that's how much quicker he is today. Believe it or not, though, fastest lap is Zazo at 14.0, so bit of difference in terms of consistency throughout this race.
And you do get a bonus point, don't forget, in each of these races for the fastest lap. I just think it must be that little tie he's got wrapped around his head that's, just giving him some concentration issues. Because when he's on it, Porsche Zaza has been absolutely fantastic in this race. I'm thinking might be he was just cooling his tyres down. But this does look as though it is going to be the white flag lap. So there's going to be one more lap to go here at Spa in our first of our races. This is the battle for 7th place on track. Jimmy Broadbent, P number 7. Then you've got yourself Pierre Valette in P number 8. And then you've got Jadier Honzink. Jadier in P number 9. They're all scrapping it out for position. And it's going to be, now you're on that last lap, Matt. You know this is the last lap. This is when you'll make that little bit more of an aggressive move.
Yeah, absolutely. This is your last sniff at it, so you might as well give it a crack, and that's certainly something that Yardier is in a position to do right now as they blast through Eau Rouge and up over the hill onto the Kemmel Straight. I intentionally left Radillon out just to trigger a few people at home, but this is the draft we're talking about, and he is well on the move. No question, DePilio has to hold the inside, try and defend position where possible, but we know when you're this far alongside, you can hold the second apex, and I think Yardier's got just enough to get the move done.
Yes, he has. We've got someone falling down our timing screens. I'm not sure if that was just a glitch there. But yes, we have got someone. Yeah, we'll come back to this one. We'll figure out what's going on. But the move has been made. And now we can see Broadbent's still in 7th place. Then you've got Valette in 8th place. You've got Honzik in 9th. At the front of your field, look at this battle going on, though. This is absolutely mega close going on here. This has got Sanchez in the mix. You've got yourself Matt Malone in the mix as well. And they've only got about a third of a lap to go.
Yeah, this is... we need to see what happened here, because Dan Suzuki was much further up the order than this, and normally I call him Mr. Racecraft. Doesn't make too many mistakes, so we'll look back with the Vodafone replay. This is obviously through the start of the lap, through Lacombe's. Oh, he just lost it on his own. Little bit too much curve on the left, and you can do that. Essentially unsettle the tire. There's not enough contact patch, because you're on a cambered curb, and you go to turn in, and the grip just doesn't translate. It overloads the tire, and you lose the rear. Very easy to do. It's such a silly mistake. You'll kick yourself for it, but unfortunately, he comes out worse on it this time.
He would get Japanese drift style points, so I'll tell you that. Dave Cameron, however, first race in the series for 2021, waving his hand. He's a happy bunny. He will claim victory in our sprint race by over 3 seconds over Borges. So run to the line, however, a little bit further back. It is mighty close, but they all remain in the position they were entering Blanchimont there. Well, we had a crazy end to the end of practice, a crazy end to the end of qualifying, crazy end to the end of our sprint race. So who knows what will happen at the end of our feature. But there's our results then. Dave Cameron winning by 3.6 over Borges Arzo in the number 56 car. And then Emily Jones, 3rd place. Dan Suzuki in 4th. Xavier Sanchez in P number 5. We're in that very close battle with Matt Malone and Jimmy Broadbent at the end as well. Jimmy Broadbent coming home 7th place. Pierre-Olivier Valette in 8th. Jaroslav Honzik in 9th. And Amir Thacker rounds out your top 10. James West in P number 11. And then we started to get towards drivers that had some form of incidents. Maxime Bilgerent in 12th. Will Ford 13th. The remainder of those results up on your screen right now. Couple of big moments in that race, which of course will be important when we set the grid for our feature race. One of them involved Mattia Vacca at the very start of the race, and we mentioned the fact that he was basically driving around without a rear spoiler for the majority of the event. And then we saw the big incident of the day so far. That was between Tony Kanaan and Emily Jones. Tony Kanaan dropping to the rear of the field after what would normally be terminal damage. I think Tony just wanted to carry on circulating just to make sure he'd be classified and therefore able to have pole for race 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was certainly a big incident, no question about that. That's high speed into that wall, a wall that's been moved back many times over the years for that exact reason. So
and paved.
And paved, you're right, absolutely. A lot more runoff there than there used to be. But it's definitely something we kind of expect with these guys being so close. There's going to be a bit of contact in the all-star race, but overall, pretty exciting at the front. The fact that some of the inconsistency actually led to some really good battles. You mentioned that they thought it was going to be a train, that maybe the baseline was a bit boring. Well, that was pretty much anything but.
And now, with the inverse grid, it's going to be even crazier. I do fully expect to see 3 wide at least twice in this upcoming race. For those of you who've been watching all season long and might have missed the memo at the start, 25-minute race now. So we've added on essentially 2 extra laps to this race, and that's because we've got more drivers than we've had in previous rounds. 16 people.
I need to get better negotiation powers, because apparently you're sitting on like the party lounge with like, you know, great view of Eau Rouge, you know, all you can drink. I'm sitting in my room. So how did this happen? Why am I not at the circuit?
I spent a lot of money. That's the simplest answer I can explain to you. I actually have been here. So on the opposite side is where the grandstands are for things like endurance racing at Spa. They don't put all the grandstands up unless it's sort of Grand Prix. I actually remember being around here when I bumped into another race car owner, which I'm not allowed to say, of course, because I'm on a Porsche broadcast. But being around here is actually really nice, the kind of back of house stuff at Spa, because it is so old, etc. But let's actually have a look at this track map. Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, of course. Nothing like the original racetrack that used to twist and turn, the Master Kink, one of the craziest corners in all the motorsports ever. But that's the elevation change. Look at that. 413 meters. And anyone that's actually been to a race, especially an endurance race around Spa, probably has walked around the track and they will know that that is a big uphill from basically the following chicane up towards Pouhon, because you always walk the track backwards, Matt.
Yeah, this is the most impressive view I've seen. And I will say one thing with Sim, due to the fact that you aren't feeling the gravity, it's hard to gauge horizons with a fixed camera. Elevation does not translate well. And seeing images like this really put into perspective how much there is changing in the hills, how much architecture went into the design of using the landscape to its advantage. And until I saw this, in fact, this exact one we're looking at yesterday, I didn't even realize Spa was this nestled into a valley with so much around it. So it's very, very cool. And I think elevation adds so much to a circuit. So there's your standard layout, the Uzi, as I call it, because it kind of looks like one. I like to attribute shapes that of similarities, like looking at clouds as a kid. I do the same thing with racetracks. So I call Spa the Uzi. I think that's what it's most known by. But yeah, it used to go for ages, just like a lot of the tracks, just like the A1 ring, or now the Red Bull ring, I suppose, if I can say that. But used to go through the mountains and go on and on and on. And a lot of tracks used to be longer, just like Circuit de la Sarthe, much like Nordschleife, which was still a little bit longer than most. Yeah. But they were all condensed down for safety reasons, for economic reasons. And Spa remains very, very good in its I mean, it's a form, we know that, but the modern form, and that it kept some of the old school speed and sort of elevation to its advantage.
Old Interlagos was my favorite old track, but that was basically the one that destroyed every racing driver's neck. One thing I will say about this track, anyone that's been to a British motorsports event will know that all you can smell at the racetrack is rubber and the smell of burgers. At Spa, you can smell two things. You can smell the smell of chips, because, you know, that part of Europe, French fries is a huge thing, which must be eaten in mayonnaise. And as commentator for the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup, Paul Smith reminded me, the other smell is the sweet batter of waffles. We're going to talk about food more later on, but in the meanwhile, if you are new to iRacing and you want to know about how you can start your iRacing career, and who knows, maybe become the next influencer or World Championship driver, head on over to iRacing.com right now. And to learn more about the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup, go to iRacing.com/Supercup. Here's a look then at your starting grid for your feature race, 25 minutes long. Tony Kanaan, number 14 machine, at the front of your field, and Mattia Vaca alongside him, row number 1. Julien Cesarura is on row 2 with Will Ford, and Maxime Bijmans in row 3 alongside James West. Row 4, Amir Thacker, who had some incidents in the first race alongside Jaroslav Honzik. Then row 5, Pierre-Olivier Valette and Jimmy Broadbent. Row number 6, Matt Malone, Xavier Sanchez. Row number 7, Dan Suzuki, Emily Jones. Watch out for row 7. That's going to be entertaining. At the rear of your field, Borchazazo and Dave Cameron. Rolling start once again for this one, as the iRacing pace car will take the field from the entrance to Blanchimont before we go green. Final words of advice for these drivers, Matt?
Don't hit the wall.
Crisp, clear, and to the point there. As we got our drivers ready to go for 25 minutes around Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. Tony Kanaan, front of your field. He was looking strong at the start of race number 1, then had that incident with Emily Jones. Pace car goes on towards pit road. Lovely look then at these cars as the green flag comes out. We are racing for 25 minutes in our feature as the drivers storm down. A big incident already. 4, 5, 6 cars involved.
Yeah, I don't know if the spotters can handle 4 wide. And as soon as I saw Jimmy move to the right, and unfortunately, I'm not sure who it was, the second car moved to the left, it was inevitable contact, and then it took out the back half of the field. So not the start we would have wanted. Not quite 1998 Formula 1 Spa start, but quite a few cars involved in that one. TK does manage to hold the lead right just behind the two guys who had incident and contact in the first race. There's a little bit more at the top of the hill, and look at the traffic jam down the straight as a result. I think everyone kept it out of the wall, but that was extremely close.
What did I say about maybe seeing 3 wide down at the start of this race? We always had it. We've got to be another shunt there. And I think that maybe that might be Will Ford involved. Boosted Media, number 4 car. That was a big hit right on the entrance into La Com. Couple of drivers off early. We have The number 64 car out. Jimmy Broadbent right at the rear of your field. Amir Thacker, 2 races in a row. He's had some incidents here. And even more carnage going on. Number 12 car into the wall. That is Jardier. And, well, Jaroslav Honzik was involved in a great battle at the end of race number 1. Race number 2, he's in the wall, and another car in the wall. What's going on here, Matt?
I have no idea. That's the second time we've seen Hydro get a little loose and collects the wall. He was a bit wide coming down the hill toward, well, Brooksteel is what it used to be called. But, down the hill toward the off-camber corner, and then that's the second time he's into the wall in the course of three apexes. So not going well for him. But this is, I mean, if you're a guy like Yardier, who we saw go off but didn't have any damage, really, just stay in it the way this is going. I mean, we've got the usual suspects breaking back through to the front, but this is a battle of attrition already.
You know what it is, Matt? And I might get into trouble for saying this the same way you got into trouble. As soon as you mention Red Bull, it's as if these drivers basically just down 4 cans of Red Bull, because it's been a crazy start to this race, and they're still going at it. Look at this one side by side as they work through Blanchimont right now in towards a bus stop chicane. Incredible close racing. Matt Malone there in the mix in the number 83 car. A lockup going on there with Gamer Muscle. And the number 22 car of Maxime Bulgemans there involved, losing 2 places on the exit of the bus stop.
Yeah, this is wild. Jimmy Broadbent's doing well to stay in this, considering the early contact. He actually hasn't gone too poorly getting back into the race, sitting in 11th at this point. Could have been much worse off. And over right now, the back of Dan Suzuki is Matt Malone. And Dan Suzuki, you'd expect to be going through the order a little more, has been a bit slow to get up to speed in this race, whereas we see Emily Jones already up into 3rd place. Sanchez just behind her. It's still TK that holds the lead by 1.2 seconds, but I'm not sure that cushion's going to last. Look at this draft. Dan Suzuki's got problems. Doesn't defend just yet. He's actually going to let him get towed, but move under braking? That's pretty complacent. I would have gone for that.
The key thing is, Emily Jones, 3rd place, lap number 2, after starting on the penultimate row of the grid. So this is Emily at this stage of the race, considering where Dan Suzuki's currently in P number 8, considering what happened in race number 1, Emily Jones looking good again in terms of extending her point haul in the championship, as that is a number 64 car. Turned around, that is Pierre-Olivier Valette then, Depolo in that 64 car, down, I believe, at, just trying to get my bearings there, that was the exit of Lacombe.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not been the best day so far for DePilio. I think that's the second time we've seen him around. He was involved in some contact in the first race as well. We saw early. In fact, he was the one that collected Rye by no fault of his own as he spun in Pouhon. But we're going to take a look back at the start. Pretty orderly this time, I have to say. Bit of a discrepancy in the first 2 rows. TK actually almost in second, even though he's on the pole. But this was exactly what happened. So watch Broadbent as they just come together. They both aim for the same part of track, and we're not aware. And then, unfortunately, yeah, it was actually Dan Suzuki trying to get by that was caught up in it. I didn't realize he was in that incident, so that's why he's still getting up to speed in this race. I take back what I said.
We're going to need another Emily Jones replay, because she did exactly what she did at Montreal, and she was able to pick a lane and choose correctly. I'm going to say one thing. If I ever go to a casino, I'm taking Emily with me, the luck that she's had the last couple of rounds of this championship. But she's up into 3rd place, and we hope that we will get a replay of her start from her perspective later on. As she gets closer to the rear of Matthias Vassar, though, this is going to help Tony Kanaan out even more. Gap between Tony Kanaan and Rye is now up to 2.9 seconds on track. Emily Jones, if she doesn't get a completely clear run past Matthias through this section of the racetrack, it could almost be game over only 6 minutes into this race. And Emily Jones going to the outside as they come down into Lacombe right now. Matteo is making her work for it. Outside into inside. We've seen this one happen before. And Rye goes wide, loses 2 places. Emily Jones up into 2nd. And you've got yourself Sanchez up into 3rd.
Yeah, he's doing quite well. Obviously, a bit of damage to the wing of that car, which is a graphical representation of a bit of loss in aero. So even still, he's driving very well to hold on to this battle. And follows Emery through. Good position gained. And now the battle on to chase TK, who now is up to a 3.2 second lead. So trying to get a bit of a cushion, and in that lap. And we know he's quick because in practice he's a pace setter, and in qualifying I think he finished 6th or 7th on the grid. So he's finally getting the race he would have wanted in the first round.
I think that Tony Kanaan hasn't actually run at this racetrack in real life. I know that he's taken part in some IMSA events with the team that he was a part of in IndyCar, but I don't think he's actually been a part of a team that's run here. We'll get our Legal Eagles up to have a look at that one in a little bit. Emily Jones 3.2 back. There is Tony Kanaan in, by the way, what I have to say is one of the best looking liveries we've seen all season. And beautiful number 14 car. We're going a little bit further back. That is Mattia Vaca, number 9 car, who lost that place a moment ago to Emily Jones. In fact, no, that's Sanchez we're looking at right now. Sanchez in the number 23 car as exit of the bus stop chicane down towards the start finish line. And Sanchez, of course, as they sneak up into 3rd place due to the fact that Vaca went wide down at Lecom last time out. And for Sanchez, just about in draft range there, possibly a little bit too far back, unless he has an absolutely perfect run through Eau Rouge and Radio. But we're on board, Vodafone on board with Xavier Sanchez right now, up through Radio, and I'd say that's still a little bit too far back, half a second down the Camel.
Yeah, Sanchez showing off that he's more than just a sim driver. He's quite a gamer. I see Toad. I see a bunch of things, plush toys. I don't even know what the names are. If people do, maybe let me know. Angry Birds, I think, maybe in there. So he's got console, he's got mobile, he's got sim. He's got some skill as well, because again, that car's damaged, and he's driving super hard. He's got a nice wheel collection behind him too. I wouldn't mind trying out a few of those. But all over the back of Emery right now, he's driving very, very well in this race. And look at the focus. I love even in sim without G-forces that your body has to battle. People still leaning into the corners.
I also love the fact that some of these influencers basically are almost commentating their way through the races as well. Now, I struggle to commentate at the best of times and look at some pretty pictures moving in front of me. But if I was having to basically interact with my influencers in real time whilst racing, whilst attacking and defending, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I know.
I've done some voiceovers on some laps, and it's never a good lap. You know, the voiceover might sound great, but the lap's not that tidy. And then you do a tidy lap, and you try and talk, and you can't. You get so focused. So I don't know how these guys are able to pull that off. Guys and girls, I should say, because Emery, we saw earlier in the first race, was looking so casual. Even in qualifying, she was like down the Camel straight, one hand on the wheel, just looking over at chat. Like, all right, like fair play, I guess. I don't know, but super cozy talking to their fans and their communities, as I guess they've developed over time, and rightfully so.
Don't forget, the Boza post-race show for the Porsche All-Stars race is immediately after the checkered flag, and that will lead immediately itself into Countdown to Green, presented by Tag Heuer, as we begin to ramp up for the 7th round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing, which, well, the first race of that is coming soon. What's going on?
Yeah, well, this is, so Emery, like I say, super casual. We saw like all the plush toys, Sanchez, he set up the camera. Emery's just like pure racing. She's like, I don't care that I'm in the basement. No one come near me. I am just sitting at my sim rig, no distractions. But look at this chatting, going down into Eau Rouge, which is the fastest and obviously one of the most famous corners in racing. And she's just casually looking to her right, still gets the braking point right, turn in perfect. That was a really good corner. I would have been in the wall if I was trying to talk like that. So, and look at this, down Camel, she's just relaxing again. Eyes over toward chat, checking the delta, checking what everyone's commenting on. I mean, and look at the mirror. I mean, we can see the onboard mirror. She's not just alone on track right now. So, yeah, super impressive.
That's a good thing. That's the art of also a very good sim racer, where I often say in racing, you're either attacking or you're defending. Mm-hmm. It seemed to be in this case, Emily Jones wasn't defending. She could tell that Sanchez was behind her, but she wasn't doing what you see a lot of sim racers do, a lot of racers do. Start to defend before you have to. And even though Sanchez entered Lecon about, 2.5, 3 car lengths back, Emily Jones basically played the numbers game, realizing he's not going to try and come past me unless I mess up the corner. And that's the art of a good sim racer. And of course, the way the iRacing system works, you build up your safety rating by how you perform on track all the time. You build up your I rating by how you can race in different circumstances. And this is why on iRacing, you don't get I rating just by winning races. It's about racecraft. It's about understanding that racing is more than just winning races.
This is cool because this is something that's been a long debate as we look on with boosted media. Motion sim. This is super cool. Yeah. He's got a harness on and everything to go with it to be super safe. Talk about immersion. Look at that screen as well. I mean, this is a pro sim facility he's essentially sitting in. That is amazing. But motion is something that's been long debated in sim. And does it work right? Is it represented right? Does it match camera? Because it's not like your head is fixed to your body that's moving in the sim. I mean, your head is fixed to your body, I hope, but you know what I mean. It's not in the game. So it's always been something that's very, very talked about. And is it beneficial? But I think it's getting better and better. And it's so cool to drive one if you have it. It is a really cool feeling. But a lot of guys aren't there yet with it. And obviously, Boosted Media is enjoying that booster seat for this race. I'm glad he has the harness on, though, Will. Safety first.
Safety first. Also, if you have a look at Boosted Media's channel, he'll explain to you some of the techniques he used to ensure that he doesn't have the horrible bezels across the 3 screens as well, and it shows the level of detail that drivers, influencers, call them anyone, will go into making that realistic experience. I had an experience at a university in the UK as we're about to get ourselves a Vodafone Replay of Mattia Vaca in just a moment. There we are, coming up for you right now. But I actually got to experience a full 360-degree motion simulator, full G-forces, full everything. I almost threw up after about 20 laps, but it was incredible, absolutely incredible. But we are getting more towards that commercial technology, and I see so many both handmade and off-the-shelf products, and that is a nice little battle going on, and then it just disappears into a bit of argy-bargy on the exit of the bus stop.
Yeah, Zazo again getting super aggressive on the brakes, and unfortunately Rai gets the unwelcome tap on the door. Definitely some body work he would have liked to keep intact, I'm sure, in this race, but does not necessarily go his way. We'll look at his rig. He's still looking intact in the chair. Maybe a little bit more stressed out on his face after that one, but yeah, he's got the nice mic. Sounds probably better than we do, and also chatting. What headset is that? That thing's kind of futuristic looking.
It is. I know my headsets because I am an audiophile, but I can't see just from that angle. I want to find that one out after the race.
Probably doesn't sound as good as Bo's. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, true. Unless they are Bo's, then we'll find out. Just to run through your top 10 very quickly. Tony Kanaan is leading by 2.9 seconds. Ever since Emily Jones was able to get up into second place, ahead of Sanchez, she's been able to close by a 10th or so here or there, but the gap between P1 and 2 has remained static. Sanchez, as I said, running in third. Dave Cameron running in fourth place. Borgetazo in P5, but now 8.7 seconds back from TK. P number 6, P number 7. That one looks as though it's hotting up. You got Gamer Muscle in P number 6. You got Dan Suzuki in P7. Matt Malone in 8. Mattia Vaca in 9th. And then Maxime Wilgemans rounding out your top 10. Good showing, by the way, in this feature race by Maxime here today. Matt Malone, Mattia Vaca looking as though they are incredibly close on track. We are looking at them now, side by side, as they work towards Eau Rouge Gradillon, and the winner of that battle is going to be Matt Malone as they come into Eau Rouge and up the hill through Gradillon.
Yeah, get that one sorted before the top of the hill, but this does give Rai a chance to get back in the draft and back on the horse down the straightaway. Comes out early, goes for the slingshot, has to tuck back in because it's slightly longer around the outside. And I don't think, I was going to say, I don't think he'll be in position to make the move, but he's not giving up easily. He tries to get inside. Not quite enough speed and inertia under braking to get the nose in. So job done, at least for now, of Matt Malone. As he gets one further position, we're going to look back at the replay. A lot of curb, tons of curb, in fact, down the hill at Stablo 1, and that's going to put him well out in the weeds.
Yeah, so that is the reason why we ended up in this situation. This through curve of Paul Frere. That was looking from Mattia Vaca over to Matt Malone. That's why Malone lost that position down towards the bus stop, gained it back on the exit of La Source. Basically, we saw that one live the following lap into Eau Rouge. But yeah, through curve, the first part of Stablo 1, if you want to call it that, there is that curve on the outside that can upset the race car. Once you get into curve of Paul Frere or Stablo 2, depending on how you want to call it, that's when you can really floor that throttle more, because basically you've got that asphalt with different parts of the track joining itself together.
Man, honestly, every time I see these images of TK, I think like he's probably the only guy capable of driving on like full Newton meter, full force, and not getting tired.
Yeah.
Like, look at those arms, jacked. The veins are like popping out. It's like power steering in a race car. What's that? Never had it. He's just absolutely on it. He's like that. I can see the blood flow. Like I'm willing to bet I probably couldn't even turn that steering wheel right now.
Well, don't forget, at certain points in his career, he's doing 345 miles an hour with 14 degrees of banking in qualifying at a place like Auto Club Speedway. And back in the end of the kart days, they didn't have great power steering, I can tell you that one. Tony Kanaan, of course, being in open wheel motorsports for so long, has dabbled across in endurance racing over his period, working with some of the North American teams as well. You can see what the force feedback was. You can just see it up the hill. And you can see how much force feedback there was, because it literally was that little shake movement that you only normally have when that force feedback is cranked right up.
Yardier, is he moving? Like, this looks like a new setup. He's got soundproofing on the wall now, so he can yell when things don't go his way in the race and not disrupt anyone. I love his casual, like, he's got the pillow, like gaming chair pillow behind him. He always has this like slouch to the right, like he's like Fast and the Furious. You know, if he had a circular steering wheel, he'd probably be driving it with one hand at 12 o'clock. You know, but well, I mean, this is a new room for him. This is cool. I want soundproofing. I want to be able to yell. Just don't give me a straight jacket, even though I probably need one. But I want to be able to yell and not have people hear me.
Yeah, I do love the microphone, Shure SM7B on there. So you can see that a lot of these influencers really are putting in the top quality when it comes to all aspects of that equipment. But yeah, again, I do love the fact that some of these influencers are still so fast, but they're so laid back. A couple of my teammates in iRacing over the years have been exactly like that. You're thinking, how can you be so relaxed? As you turn our attention over to Gamer Muscle. And here is Mr. West then, as he heads himself, what's this, down towards the Fongish chicane. That Gamer Muscle car, there's one thing we have to note about this, and I can't believe we're 7 minutes, 30 seconds left to go in our feature race, but I've got to love the L plate on the front of that RSR.
I'm more worried about, like, is he underwater? Like, what's with the it looks like he's in an aquarium. He's got the purple lighting. I noticed he's got the field gloves on, so good on him, but like, he's got fish beside him. Is he like a beta fish right now? Is he trying to fight the others for survival? Obviously a fan of aquatic animals. I don't know much about fish. All I know is that we had them as a kid and I kept overfeeding them and killing them. So I'm not the best fish person to talk to.
Yeah. But the L plates front and rear of that number 6 car of Gamer Muscle. And it looks Matt Malone went very deep into that corner there in the number 83 car. It looked as though he was trying to go for the outside pass. I'm not sure whether he just misjudged his braking angle or if he was reacting to Gamer Muscle himself. We're going to get ourselves a replay in a moment. One of the Vodafone Replays just behind, by the way. Matty and that was... Sorry, we're going to go to the replay first. Porsche Zazo, number 56 car. Exit of Radion, then up the hill. So the Spanish driver of Porsche Zazo going to go to the left-hand side, is he? Yes, he is. And that is going to be over the number 48 cars. They work themselves down. That is Dan Suzuki. Look how close they get in towards... La Common 2-for-1 special down. That was Jean Lacey last at late breaker style. That
must have been inches off the front of Dan Suzuki as well. And Dan was in a tough position. Borzazo does well to pull out of that draft early and take track space, because you could tell Dan Suzuki also had a draft, wanted to go left and make a move, but he got boxed in. So really good positioning by Borzazo to get that position. Actually gets 2-for-1 out of it.
Yeah, indeed. So just over 6 minutes of this race remaining. Don't forget, 25-minute race. We've extended it by a few minutes. Going to be very interesting when the white flag comes out in this feature race. So I was doing the maps, and depending on who was leading and their lap times, it can be very, very close. Some people might like the extra lap. Some people, well, their tyres might fall off a little bit, just too much at the end. It was Matt Malone and Mattia Vacca, by the way. We saw that the moment where Matt Malone and Mattia Vacca were going side by side just before we went to our Vodafone replay. But Matt Malone remains in 8th place. The number 9 car of Mattia Vacca, well, is in P number 9 as it stands. But we're looking at a battle for 2nd place on track. Emily Jones is in the number 51 car, the Australian driver. She is in 2nd place, and then has Peggy 360, the number 23 car, the Spanish driver Xavier Sanchez in 3rd. Then the British driver of Dave Cam, who of course got himself pole position for this, and the bonus points that come with that, and running in P4 for Dave Cam. First race of the season for him. He has had a great old showing.
Yeah, super good showing. Great to have him back in the series. Obviously a man with a lot of pace. Matt Malone, 2nd race for him this year. He is just rocking the branding right now. He's got iRacing to his right. He's got the Never Not Racing hat on. Porsche just above him as well in the poster. I would say sellout, but honestly, that man's smart. That's probably how you do. What is that facial expression? What is the light on the screen? Is that lighting up the poster? Oh, it's a caution light, I'm being told. Yes. That's pretty cool. Does he actually have to hit it himself? Like, I know I've seen Tom Cornell has like a roll cage built around his sim, and when he gets in an accident, he presses a smoke machine to make it really, like, a bit much for me, but that's pretty cool. It's actually lighting up on its own right now, so it actually is an indicator, and he has that programmed in. Very cool. So it's telling him right now as there was a car to his right, it was lit up on his right side. Very, very cool, actually.
Yeah, and he again just goes
Didn't
wide.
Tell him where the braking point was, though, did it?
Second lap in a row that's actually happened to him as he loses that position back then to Matthew Wacken. I think he has himself a bit of a slowdown as a consequence of that one. By the way, I have got one of those Never Not Racing hats. Unfortunately, it just doesn't fit me. And yes, I've got a huge ego, and it's because I've got that big of a head. There's no other explanation for it. I'm very sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But you can see Matt Malone has now served that kind of moderate slowdown penalty. Talking about penalties, by the way, Race Control did review Tony Kanaan's start from race number 1. No further action to be taken, and the reason for that one is it wasn't actually TK just being too fast. It's that Emily Jones was a little bit sluggish, and she was alongside TK at the start of the race, and that's the reason why it looked as like Tony Kanaan jumped.
That's exactly what I was saying, and I've been on both sides of it. I had a start once where I literally passed 3 rows before the first corner, and when they looked back at it, I also just had a slightly better run. They were a bit sluggish. I was in a good spot in my gear ratio. I got to jump. I've been on the other side of it where I'm maintaining. We jumped on to the Dave Cam or the cam of Dave Cam at the exact wrong moment as he gets into the back of Emery. Not what we want to see. He's been so quick and concise all day, but that one's a little bit of an argument gone wrong. 2 minutes left as well, so they're getting a little bit desperate for position, a little bit more I don't know, desire at this point of the race to be on the podium, and Emery's going to at least walk away from that one, but it does give a gap to Sanchez. TK is still well out in front, by the way, but yeah, just to go back to that point, it's very hard to distinguish with rolling starts what is an actual jump, and obviously, if you have telemetry, throttle percentage is the obvious one, but otherwise, it's all discrepancy of the officials.
And it is worth noting, by the way, in terms of all of iRacing's World Championship, they asked that from drivers for those exact reasons. There's the replay then. Vodafone Replay on board with Dave Cameron after singing his praises all race long. With Dave Cam on board with him, well, it just didn't work out. Thankfully for him, he didn't actually then have to give up the position afterwards, because that would have allowed Borges Arzo to close up, possibly a little bit too close to comfort. But Emily Jones does lose second place as a consequence, does remain in third place. That means that she will still, if things finish as they are, be able to give some money to her community in the form of iRacing credits. Tony Kanaan, number 14 machine, now leads by 4.6 seconds over Xavier Sanchez, as we are going to be very close. That's what I said before. It is going to be mighty, mighty close as to whether or not we get this extra lap in. So I've made this mistake so many times in my commentary career, and Paul Smith right now is probably reminding me in my ear about what happened at Circuit de la Sarre a couple of years ago. 45 seconds are remaining on the play clock. As Tony Kanaan, I think we are going to get one extra lap in, because TK's already on the exit of Curva Paul Frere, and it doesn't take you 35 seconds to basically do that and get towards the start-finish line. If it was the endurance pits, it might be a bit different.
Just lift and coast, get that flag out. No, just backing off TK. He's got a bit of a gap. No, he'll go for one more. I think I was going to say 19 seconds. Yeah, there's not that much of a gap. It's not a 17-second gap. So yeah, definitely one more time around the circuit for these guys. Great position for Tony to find himself in. Good recovery after the contact in the first race. Quick question for everyone in chat, though, whether you're on YouTube or on Twitch. Which sim setup that we've looked at today, because we've gone through all of the drivers, well, pretty much all the drivers now. Oh no, maybe that's why the learning plates are still on. Gamer Muscle's gone around. Dan Suzuki, this is not his day in the wars again. Now, we didn't catch the start of that. Perhaps he wasn't involved with contact, but either way, he's lost a few positions, so one can assume that he was. We'll get a better look at it. But which setup in chat, let me know, would you like to be in of all of the sim setups we've seen today? Is it the motion sim of boosted media? Is it underwater, as we saw in certain instances with, I think it was Gamer Muscle? And yeah, there's been a few cool ones.
Yeah. As we are on the final lap then. For those of you who are just joining us, don't worry. Countdown to Green, presented by Tag Heuer, will be coming up after post-race interviews on the both post-race show from this, the Porsche All-Star Series. There is Maxime Boujmans in 10th place, having a good solid run here.
I said lap. We looked at all of them. She's got the miniature Lando Norris helmet, so she's immediately my favorite because you got to support the milkman, but also the Luigi go-kart, which is probably faster around the Nürburgring than most of the people I've seen on Sim. So there you go. Very cool. And a few other, I think, some Formula One cars and whatnot. So Nürburgring is going to be maybe friendly to her. Obviously, those who like it, you tend to like it a lot and therefore drive it a lot. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, it's an incredible track. I love it. Yeah. Stop. Oh, I thought you were knocking it. I was going to say, come on now.
It is a great track. Meanwhile, Tony Kanaan, curveball Frere coming up for him right now for the final time. It's the number 14 machine, first race in the series. And you can just see how relaxed he is. He's got a couple more corners to go. We're having a look then on board with Tony Kanaan as he comes through Blanchimont for the final time in this 25-minute feature race. Of course, there'll be some prize money going over to his community. So congratulations to the fans of Tony Kanaan. He'll be sharing more information about how you can claim a share of that one very soon. But there's a wave from the Brazilian driver, Tony Kanaan, number 14 machine, wins your feature race, and then you're going to have Xavier Sanchez coming home second place, and Emery will come home in third. A little battle going on at the very end of this race. This is between Mattia Vaca and Borja Zarzo, but Borja Zarzo able to claim P number 5, Vaca P number 6. Close at the end, but that bust up does make it very hard in order to make a move towards the start-finish line. And here is a look at your final race results then from Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, our 25-minute feature race. Tony Kanaan able to avoid all the drama at the start, able to claim victory by 4.9 seconds over Spanish driver Xavier Sanchez. Emily Jones comes home in third place after being in a bit of a battle with Dave Cam. They both went off down at the bus stop chicane. Dave Cam falls into P number 4. And Borja Zarzo rounds out your top 5. Mattia Vaca, Matt Malone, Dan Suzuki, James West, and Maxime Boujmans rounds out your top 10 with Jaroslav Honzik, Jimmy Broadbent, Pierre-Olivier Valette, and Mithaka Wilford running at the top 15. One retiree, and that is Julian Cisaburas. As well, 2 good races. We have got ourselves a new driver to winner's circle, to the podium, the top step of. We're going to have a chat with him in a moment, Matt. But first of all, never ever say the baseline setup's going to be boring ever again.
No, absolutely not. And it's not like they just chuck the car in a default. There is no default. There's still some thought that goes into it by iRacing when they create these setups. And yeah, that worked out super well. I have to say, maybe it was that extra bit of draft gear, as we were calling it, just because the gear ratio wasn't optimized perfectly as these guys would set it up perhaps, but overall it looked very good and the car looked very stable. So it is an equalizer. I love the RSR in this game. I really do. I think it's such a great car. It rotates very well. It is more of a mid-engined Porsche because of the modifications that they do in GTE, and therefore I think it's very balanced to drive. So very complacent car, very fun, good and accurate, and around a circuit like Spa, as much as I'm slow here, it is a fantastic car to drive and a great experience too.
We're going to talk points exiting this round in a few moments time, but before we do that, we are going to get ourselves the opportunity to talk to a couple of drivers, of course, that made up your podium, and we're going to start off in a moment's time with Tony Kanaan. I know that you're still going on about how ripped he was and how he's driving that car with absolutely full force feedback there.
Yeah, he's like, that's like arm day at the gym. It looked like, I mean, that's just TK. Guy's still fit as a fiddle, and you know, he's been racing for years and years now. Obviously, well accomplished, has an Indy 500 to his name, and he's got more driving experience, I would say, than all of the rest of the field combined. And I think he's joined us. Tony Kanaan, a win today.
Yeah, totally unexpected. Obviously, I want to thank Porsche and all of you guys for the invite. Very flattered to be with a bunch of the streamers. You know, I follow these people. I'm a big fan of theirs, their work, and you know, I had an eventful second race. The first race was a hard fight between all of us, but yeah, really excited. So a win is a win, right? So
absolutely,
it's my first win of the year.
And it's great that you could join us in the post-race show as a winner as well. So, talk to me about this, though, because I think you and I first spoke about a year ago. You were just getting your sim. If I'm not mistaken, you set it up in your bathroom at home because you didn't have anywhere else to have it, or maybe it was your closet. But you've really taken to this. You've been going crazy on the sim lately.
No, Matt, I am actually still in my closet. Under that backdrop, it's actually my clothes. So I have to tear down and put it back up. So I actually started sim racing 8 months ago when the pandemic hit. So I'm pretty new to it. I never thought I was gonna be trying to compete in this, at this level. But I enjoyed it a lot. It become part of my daily routine right now. I mean, I've been spending a lot of time on the off season on the sim, not just because it's fun, but also it's benefiting me for my IndyCar season, my stock car season. I'm doing 18 races and 3 different series this year. So I really, I enjoyed it. I enjoy it with the community. I've enjoyed, being streaming and letting people get to know me better. So pretty excited about it.
I was going to ask about that because you've really been on Twitch a lot. It is really a different level of communication with the community that formerly was available. That must be kind of fun.
Completely. And I think that brought us up in this very difficult time, brought us up more together, right? I mean, the only interaction I had with fans was on race weekends. And yes, IndyCar is extremely open for autograph sessions, this and that. But this, I mean, they can follow my daily activities. I mean, I've been doing lives from the gym, taking the kids to school, on the way to Christmas with all 4 kids in the minivan. And there are people like, are you a race car driver? Do you drive a minivan? So it brought us up. It brought me a lot tighter to my fans, which I love it. I love it.
Yeah, race car driver, but still a dad, right? You still have your obligations.
Well, I have 4 kids. So as soon as we hang this up, my wife is like, you can go have your fun with whatever you're doing, but this afternoon, they're all yours. So I got to get ready for that.
Perfect. Well, hey, congratulations. Thanks for joining us. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, there we go. Tony Kanaan takes the win today, Will. Very, very solid race from him throughout. There's that beautiful livery we talked about as well, showing off that Brazilian flag in the front, and it looked very good throughout the race.
Indeed, so as we welcome you back then to the Boza post-race show. Those of you who are wondering, where is the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing? Don't worry. It's coming up next. We are going to try and see whether we can get 1 or 2 more drivers in before we wrap things up. We are actually going to have a chat with Emily Jones. And Emily, normally it's Matt that does all these interviews. I'm going to step in. I'm going to do one for once. Last time out at Montreal, you had that moment. We had to choose left or right. It seemed to be here again at the start of the feature race. You had to choose left or right. And you managed to get it right again. How do you keep on doing so?
Honestly, I have the iRacing gods smiling down on me, Will. I'm so lucky. I don't know how. I honestly, it was all happening. I didn't even realize there was a crash happening until it was literally in front of my nose. And I was like, oh. And then there was a car on my left, so I went right, and then I survived. It was ridiculous. No idea how I made it through, but yeah, very, very lucky, I guess.
You got yourself a number of places really early on in that scrap in the feature race, getting yourself up to P2. But then it just seemed as if you couldn't quite hunt down TK. The gaps are coming up and down, 10th or so either way. How hard were you pushing it? How hard are you just trying to keep the car in one piece?
Yeah, it was a really difficult kind of position to be in. I might have had damage at the start from that crash because I was kind of crashed into a bit. But I might not have. I feel like I had like a 10th on, or not even that, like half a 10th on TK, but it just wasn't enough to chase him down. And I was in a weird situation where I had Heike and Dave Cam drafting off me. So I was punching a hole in the air and I was catching him, but it I don't know. I was pushing hard, but it's really easy to get off tracks at this track. So I was like trying to balance the two of them, I guess.
A little bit of the talk this week was about the pros and cons of a simple baseline setup running at Spa. In hindsight, how did it work out? Was it fun racing or was it more frustrating knowing that getting a gap was going to be more and more difficult?
Honestly, and I'm not an expert in the GT. I've never really raced this. I mean, I do sometimes race this car, but very rarely. So I'm not the expert, but I like it. I think more wing is good because it keeps us really close together. And I feel like some of the drivers in this series have more of an F1 background or come from F1 and other games. And I feel like the baseline version of this car handles similar to an F1 car. It's got like lots of grip, lots of aero, big TC, and I don't know. I feel like it's made the field really close. So that's been a positive side.
Final quick question: Nordschleife, Circuit de la Sarthe, Monza. Which one are you most looking forward to?
Honestly, I think the Nords in this car is going to be nuts. But I think Sarthe will just be crazy. I reckon we're going to be 3 wide on the straights. It's going to be so fun.
Well, that's Emily Jones, ladies and gentlemen, coming home on the podium once again, of course, getting some money for her community as well. And Matt, 3 great races still to come in this season. We've got the Nordschleife, your favourite track of the season. We've got Circuit de la Sarthe, the pure GTE race track of the season. Then we've got the craziness of Monza. Still a long way to go in this season, even though the championship is getting itself now to Emily getting closer and closer to being called champion.
Yeah, absolutely. But someone else who joined us this time around, first time this season, but obviously no stranger to success and obviously speed today, Dave Cam. You were remarkable out there. Fastest lap in the second race. We did jump on board when you kind of get into the back of Emery, but otherwise, really sharp race considering you haven't been on much this year.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, apologies to Emery for that. I've looked at it, a little bit of net code, but, it happens. So I've apologised, and I will send them my apologies after the race. But good fun races. 2 really good fun races.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I've watched your videos on setting up my triple screens and all sorts of things. So you're no stranger to this, but great to see you back in the series. You planning to come around a little more often?
Yes, with work. Unfortunately, I had to miss the first part, but I've got a couple of free weekends today and the next one in the Nordschleife. So I'm free for that one. So fingers crossed, I'll be back for then.
How do you fare around the Nordschleife when you're in an RSR? It's tricky. I feel like opposite to Spa, sometimes the slower car is a little better around the Nürburgring.
Yeah, I'd never used to get on with it. It's only this season on iRacing that I've actually, something's clicked. I kind of remember the second part now where I could never, ever remember it. So fingers crossed we can do all right. But it'll be good fun racing wherever we finish.
Yeah, racing's quite good in this series, actually. Was there anyone that kind of surprised you? Were you impressed by how well it's usually quite clean, so...
Yeah, usually. It was the first race was superb. Dan, I've raced against Dan loads of times. Tony was putting the fear of God into me at the beginning. He's super quick. He got a lightning start. Borgia, Emery was there. Everybody was on pace. Second race, getting through the pack. Everybody was on pace. Good close race. I know there was a bit of carnage in the second race. I've not looked at that yet, but yeah, it was really close. Everybody was on it today.
Yeah, well, it was great to have you, and hopefully you do fare well at the Nürburgring. The second half's tricky. It took me, I think, something like 1,000 laps just to really learn that place, so I understand completely what you mean.
Yeah, it's good fun, though. Good fun.
Yeah, well, hopefully it is. We'll see you next week, and thanks for joining us again.
Lovely. Thanks, guys. Thanks for putting this on. Cheers, folks.
Well, there we go. That's another great All-Star race done, I think, Will.
It is. And we've got 3 more, of course, to go in the season. 3 great racetracks. You mentioned it already. We've got the Nordschleife to come. We've got ourselves Circuit de la Sarthe to come and Monza to come. For those of you that want to know more about how to start your iRacing career, you can log on to iRacing.com today, including potentially how you can save yourself some money with your first membership. And if you want to know more about the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing, visit iRacing.com/Supercup. Well, Matt, as we see some replays of the excitement we're seeing today, closing thoughts from Circuit Spa-Francorchamps.
Great to have the faster cars around such a circuit like this, and you nailed it. We've got some incredible tracks coming up, so very, very excited for those. And great to have Tony Kanaan, great to have Dave Cam back, and hopefully the racing's just as good next week.
And that has been the Boza post-race show then from the Porsche All-Stars event. Supercup qualifying for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup is coming up in just a couple of moments' time. In the meanwhile, from myself, Will Vincent, and from Matt Trevette, we'd like to thank you for watching this edition of the Porsche All-Stars race. It's been absolutely incredible once again as these drivers have made their journey over to the RSR GTE machine. Next, we're going to see how some of the world's best sim racers do as they go to battle again at this magnificent racetrack in Belgium known as Spa-Francorchamps. So from all of us here across iRacing and Porsche's platforms, we'll talk to you on the other side of these messages.
final feature race in the Porsche Esports Supercup. Brilliant launch.
40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is Racing for Immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup.
Well, 6 rounds down, just 4 rounds remain here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. And well, what a tremendous venue we have got for you here today. But before we get into that and before we get into qualifying, we had the awful news that broadcasting legend Murray Walker had passed away today. And he was an absolute icon of the broadcasting industry. Not just in Formula One, but right across motorsport, and he will truly be missed.
Yeah, I always said, whether it was casting in Counter-Strike or now in sim racing, a little bit closer to motorsport, that he was my role model and someone I looked up to. And if I could sit down with any racing legend, it wasn't a driver that I would want to sit down for that 1 hour and chat with. It would be Murray Walker, because that man can tell stories, and he's been around and been such a huge part of motorsport for so long. So yeah, absolutely will be deeply missed. And he's left a huge impact on the racing world.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes without saying that all 3 of us here in this commentary booth will have looked up at him in some way and use him as a yardstick as to how we're trying to attain our goals.
Yeah, of course. He retired a little bit early on into me being into motorsports, but I always remember his voice. When I was a small boy, trying to get watching my dad, Formula One, and going back to those earlier races as well, and just seeing how much enthusiasm he had for the sport, and that enthusiasm really came across. And that's one thing we try to do as commentators. We try to get you excited by us feeling excited as well. And Murray Walker was the best at doing that, and I don't think really anyone can emulate him. Many of us will try. We'll try our best and try and give the same emotional impact as what he was able to, but he was a master of his craft. He was the best motorsports commentator, best sports commentator in general, at least in my opinion. So it's quite hard for us to talk about this, I suppose.
Yeah. Proof that passion can't be faked either. I mean, that guy put his heart and soul into it, and he could hear it. It came through in every broadcast.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you guys have any sort of moments that stand out for you. The one that I actually put out on social media was that clip at Adelaide in 1986 of Nigel Mansell's tyre just coming apart, and every time I hear his commentary, just those goosebumps come up. It was truly sensational.
For me, I think there's a lot. I mean, Murrayisms are always funny because he played them off so well, but he also had a really good quick wit with his charisma. Yes. And I think the British Touring Car one, the "I'm going for first," says John Cleland, will always stand out, because that was just, I mean, look, every driver's given the finger to another at some point, but for him to play that off so brilliantly on broadcast was just spectacular. It was, and everyone now, when they see that, that's what they think of. So it's so cool.
Connery?
Yeah, just an incredible character, and from what I'm hearing, because it's lit up my Twitter timeline, for example. No one has had a bad word to say about him from people who have met him in real life. It's just very, very lovely, very accommodating, very, very genuine as well, and will be very, very sorely missed. And of course, our thoughts are with his family and friends at this time as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we will be having a moment at the start of the race for him as well. But he would want us to carry on the show. And what a show we have for you. And Spa-Francorchamps, I mean, Connery, you called it the first season, side by side on the last lap. Tommy Erstgaard taking a memorable victory here. This track comes up with some tremendous racing.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It really did 2 years ago in that race, of course, with Tommy getting his first win and only win so far in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. It promotes a lot of overtaking. Of course, you've got those slipstream opportunities coming down the Camel Straight into Lacombe, so you can dive down the inside, try and get things done. But the good thing about Spa is that these aren't simple opportunities where you're able to breeze your way by. You have to really fight tooth and nail for it, and the circuit promotes that as well. So it's absolutely brilliant for the on-track action. Hopefully we get to see some here today, and maybe we can see some, more mixing of things up at the top of the field.
And Matt, you can see the elevation change there on that 3D map. It is one of the most difficult tracks I've ever had to walk around, that's for sure.
No doubt. I said it in the All-Star race, but for those just joining, this is the first actually time that I appreciated the true elevation of Spa. I've never been there in person. I've been down the road to Nürburgring. They're only about an hour apart. I've been there several times, and Paul, you know the unfortunate story of my tickets going mysteriously missing in the mail for the F1 race that I was supposed to attend. But nonetheless, it really put it into perspective, seeing these hillsides. And I said it before as well, the one thing Sim has a very hard time replicating is elevation, because you don't get that gravity change. You don't, with a fixed horizon in the car, you don't really get that sense of how deep and immersed you are in the wilderness at a place like Spa. And these hills are so massive. And what a great job by the architects to modernize the circuit as they did and still keep it with that great character using the landscape.
Yeah, it certainly was in keeping with the old circuit. As you can see, 4.35 miles. So normally we'd be saying this is one of the longest circuits of the season, but unfortunately for this circuit, it's actually quite small compared to two of the tracks that we head to later on. But Connery, we've had some minor changes to the cars as well. That's going to make starting the races extremely difficult, because there's been clutch modifications, haven't there?
Yeah, a couple of changes coming in. Of course, we had a new build in iRacing come through this week. So it's going to be a little bit for the drivers to adapt with how the car is handling in this situation. Of course, as you mentioned, standing starts with these clutch changes is going to be a pretty interesting thing. It's going to be, we're going to have to see if drivers are able to get up to speed very, very quickly. And if those have had actually can capitalize on that when it comes to the start here. Of course, it's a very, very short run down towards La Source for the first time, but it's a very big opportunity into La Source to get a lot of positions done if you get the start right.
Well, Joshua Rogers has an 87-point lead at the moment at the head of the standings. He's 1 week clear. He could take the week off and still be in the lead of the championship here, Matt. Time started to run out for the rest of the field to try and challenge him for this championship.
Yeah, Mitchell DeYoung might want to get up from his sim rig and go across the room and unplug Josh's to get a better chance in this championship. Not that I would want that, but yeah, interestingly enough, they're both in the same room at the Coanda house in Germany, but Josh has just had a remarkably good season, such great consistency. Interestingly enough, his qualifying record, despite having 4 poles this year, hasn't been as resounding as it has been in the past, because the last 3 races he hasn't been on pole position. So rare for him not to be there. But yeah, guys like Sebastian Job obviously into some trouble this year, Alejandro Sanchez, Kevin Ellis Jr. is in a good position, but Josh is really at this point doesn't need to be overly aggressive in these races. He is in a fantastic, comfortable slot right now with 3 rounds to go.
Very quickly, Connery, any sort of thoughts as to who will go well?
Well, this one's going to be the more difficult one to call, of course. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. Joshua Rogers has been absolutely exemplary so far this season. There's no reason why he can't get back to the top of the field here today and continue his charge towards that championship trophy at the end of this season. So if you really had to force me, I would go Josh Rogers for this one, but that is perhaps the easy option.
Well, thank you very much, Connery. We'll be hearing from you throughout this event. But Matt, the drivers are out there getting themselves ready for qualifying, preparing their cars, and getting the tyres up to temperature as well.
Yes.
And trying to assault this track, which is a very difficult track to actually get a clean lap time around as well.
It is, because you're so on the limit and there's so many spots to get 1Xs. I think almost every single corner you can just put a wheel slightly too far off and boom, lap's gone for qualifying. Adds up in the race quite quickly as well. But I do want to talk about something you said. We're on a new build. We are on week 13 in iRacing, which go have all your fun. You don't have to worry about your SR or iRating as much this week. Get to try out some new cars and tracks. But that also comes with it an update. And iRacing always brings a little bit of advancement and evolution to the game. And these guys are on that. So 2 things. 1, They'll have less time to prepare their setups than normal. They can't really fall back on a similar baseline that they would use to make adjustments. They don't really start from scrap either. They know where they need to go with the car, but it just takes a little bit more time. And two, the tire warming has changed significantly in qualifying, which could change the game a lot today. So I won't get too into the logistics of it, but there's a difference in how the clutch is used, which actually can now burn itself out. So these guys have to be very careful with how they warm the tires up on the opening lap of the qualifying session.
Absolutely. Well, here is championship leader Joshua Rogers heading through Bruxelles. The long right-hander, also known as Rivage, but it's officially now Bruxelles. Through Jackie X corner as well. That's had a name change last year.
That one I didn't have. The other one I was confused with earlier.
Well, look at Josh's face right now. It's emotionless, it's stern, there's concentration on his eyes there. He knows what he needs to achieve. He needs to get himself a pole position because, as you pointed out, Matt, his qualifying is just not been there the last 4 rounds. Okay, I say that. He's been in the front row of the grid for at least 3 of those races. So he's just not quite had that edge that others have been able to take those pole positions from him.
Yeah, absolutely. We said he had something like 18 out of 21 pole positions in the life of the championship, and then now it's something like 18 out of 24. So as soon as we made a highlight about it, we jinxed him. The commentator's curse. As it is. So see if Josh can get back to that front position. But look at the change already. I mean, it's early yet in qualifying, but you've got Sanchez and Joe both up near the front. So something to perhaps in it for those guys who really, really need perfect weekends if they're going to make anything out of this championship. Sebastian, you and obviously Connery have the privilege of calling it, but Sebastian did wrap up the GB title at least.
Yeah, he did. It's Ayashan Guvan to the top of the standings. Oh, scrap that, because now Josh Rogers to the top of the standings ahead of Charlie Collins. Here comes Dane Warren, Jeremy Bootlib. Oh, they're all coming in now at the times here from the first lap times. Mitchell de Jong, 1,000th of a second off of Josh Rogers' time. They're in the same room, and they're almost sharing times as well there.
Worth noting, I see a few people asking it already. The track temp is the coldest we've had all year, which is fantastic. Condensed air, better for the engine, but also means the tire life not as much of a concern throughout the course of the race. Still a very demanding circuit. It is 19.5 degrees Celsius air temp with a track temp right now of 25.0. So we'll see if that's similar in the race because they do advance the session, so that changes quite a bit. I shouldn't say quite a bit, but it changes suddenly. It's not like we're going to be exactly that when we get to race, but not a bad spot to be in for these guys. They'll be quite comfortable with that, and there should be quite a good amount of grip out there on circuit right now, especially with the tires coming into their own on this the second lap of qualifying.
Now, you see that arm cover there for Jamie Fluke. He suffered an injury in the off-season and has been trying to recover from that, and it's just helping keep his arm a little bit warmer, just so that he's not looking up. And of course, don't forget, Barcelona, he got involved in an accident which actually injured him further as well. So he's really doing it tough out there, and I keep on saying this season, if he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all, because Jamie has just not had a good season at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no joke. I mean, these wheels now, there's a reason direct drive wheels especially come with kill switches. That's not a gimmick. They're very much needed. And I'm sure we've all had friends come over to our houses who maybe don't sim all the time, or maybe haven't even been on one at all, and they want to jump in. And the first thing I tell anyone is if you're going at the wall, take your hands off the wheel.
Yeah.
Don't worry about saving the car. Take your hands off the wheel completely, because they can get you. I mean, it can in real life too. So it's very accurate in that sense, and it can be very painful, as Jamie Fluke found out.
Well, Kevin Ellis went injured a thumb as well in one of the races this season. So, again, it's the only, as Connery said one time on the broadcast, it's the only sport where you get an injury that isn't an RSI. So it really is a dangerous e-sport here, that's for sure. Moreno Sarica, we've not really seen that much of him this season. He's working his way through in the 69 car. Currently yet to set a lap time, and time is running out for him. He will get the lap time in here, but he's got to keep it clean and push. He's still pushing those track limits because he has to in this series.
Look at the time. Rogers and de Jong. I mean, you know, when you chase that ghost car, this is where you wouldn't even be able to discern the difference between the two if we put them inside of each other at the finish line. That's .001 right now. That's ridiculous.
Yes, it's incredible. You can't get much closer than that, that's for sure, without going to the 10,000ths of a second.
We need to go to, like, what was it, 1997? Villeneuve, Frentzen, and Schumacher and all the exact same time.
Well, here comes Sarika. Can he get a lap time, let alone a fast lap time? Comes across the line now, and, he did not set a lap time, so he went and invalidated his lap time on that lap there. Joshua Rogers' main rival in the championship and main rival in this qualifying session, Mitchell de Jong, he's working his way through, trying his hardest to improve that lap time and get himself ahead of the Australian that he's chasing down.
Yeah, and the focus is there. I say they're in the same room. I'm sure the temperature of that room is increasing considerably as the battle between them heats up. But they won't be necessarily focused on one another or even aware of their surroundings at this point. They'll be so tuned in on track. So Mitchell de Jong, again, the closest rival in the championship, definitely had an incredibly good season so far this year. We saw it at the tail end of last season, the last 5 rounds. Last 5 races, so 3.5 rounds, if you will, feature sprint. He was getting much more consistent with point-scoring positions, and it's really translated through to this year. Shorter off-season this year, maybe part of it. Carlos Fenolosa, we haven't seen too much from him this year, but he's definitely someone that has pace on his day, and he's been right around that mid-pack in the top 20, which is another battle we have to talk about, Paul, because that top 20 is starting to matter.
It certainly is. It's going into those last few rounds is really where that top 20 is going to be a key focus. But yeah, Carlos, one of your rookies, one of the qualifiers from the qualifying process for this championship, heading across the line right as the flag drops here in qualifying. So we will give you your starting grid here for the sprint race in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. It's Rogers and de Jong on the front row, with Collins and Job on the second row, Dane Warren and Alejandro Sanchez in third row. Bootloop Govan with Gyasi and Campbell, Fluke and Hart round out row 6. And you see in some of the rest of the names, Martin Cronker finding himself up on row number 7, Matt Backham row 9, Kevin Ellis Jr., that race winner from Interlagos, not doing too well in row 8. And then more of your drivers. Graham Carroll down in row 11 there. Jack Sedgwick, a stalwart of the season, down in row 12. Another stalwart, David Williams, row 14 for him, as we get towards the bottom of the grid, where drivers who didn't set a lap time in that qualifying. And we've got a 36-car grid here for you today. And this is going to be a fantastic race. I'm really looking forward to this one. I know the drivers are really excited for this one. But, just very briefly, we've seen what the drivers could do out there in qualifying. The race is going to be a completely different thing here, Matt.
Oh, completely. And the Cup car, we know there's a lot more to it than with setup being open for these guys than what we saw with the baseline of the GTE. Sure, the lap times are a little slower, but they're still doing 2 minutes and 20 seconds in a Cup car around here, which is remarkable. And down through the Kemmel Straight, you can bet your bottom dollar will be 3 wide on this opening few laps.
Well, the drivers getting themselves ready for the start of this one. Just a few more seconds. They'll look towards the gantry for the green light. And, well, remembering Murray Walker here. Lights go red. And it's go, go, go here at Spa. start here to this race. Job went side by side into Eau Rouge. Dion and Rogers in together. They're in the gravel trap at Brussels. Oh my goodness. This is first and second in the championship, and they're facing the wrong way. What on earth happened there?
And of course the one involved in it as well is Sebastian Job. I was just thinking what Murray would be saying about all of this on the opening kerfuffle, if you want to call it that, but that's on De Jong. He moves over slightly too much. Sebastian was already there. He doesn't need to at Ravage. He's got the camber on the outside. He doesn't have to take that position. And not only does he kill his own chances, he takes Rogers right down to the back. And the man who needs this fortune the most is now the man in the lead of the race. Sebastian Job is in first.
Your defending champion will have a smile like a Cheshire cat, that is for sure. He'll be delighted, but he's got to keep focus here because he's got another 5.5 laps remaining to stay at the front, and you can guarantee that Charlie Collins will be trying to go for the lead. Here we go then towards Blanchemont. Here's the replay then.
Watch this, watch closely. Sebastian's already positioned on the exit, side by side, and as they come down the corner, Mitchell moves completely over to try and get the inside of Josh Rogers and almost pretends that Sebastian doesn't exist. Mitchell causes that whole incident and takes out his teammate in the process.
That is huge. That has dropped Rogers all the way to the back of the field. De Jong is there with him as well. So, there's drama going on in the background of the shot there at the exit of the bus stop chicane. But, well, you said it right there. The man who needed it the most is Sebastian Job, and he leads ahead of Charlie Collins. Alejandro Sanchez in third place with Jeremy Boothloop in fourth and Dane Warren fifth. Ayachan Guvan, what a start for him. This is the best position he's been in all season. Up there in sixth place for the time being as they go through Radion once again. Start a second lap, and Sebastian Job now, he doesn't go defensive because he's lost that lead. Well, Charlie Collins is showing on the timings at the front, and yeah, you just saw them out of shot there. Collins to the front. So as they go through the right-hander at Malmedy, here we go, replay. You saw this, Matt, and you called it. Well, how do we see it from Job's point of view?
I mean, at this point, it's all straightforward. The draft is going to be massive. We just saw Job relinquish the lead to Collins, and I think that's going to be something that's an ongoing theme. But on the exit of Malmedy, Job's got the run. He's there. He's not necessarily overlapped, but he's there, and it's too late to move at that point in the braking zone. And I think Mitchell de Jong just slightly misjudged it, was being very optimistic to get down the inside of his teammate. And it's just, from that angle, it's not the overlap, but it's still moving too late, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see how this all pans out then. There's the battle for the lead then. It is Collins, the rookie. Collins at the front of the field, ahead of Sebastian Job, Alejandro Sanchez and Jeremy Boothloop are your top four. Dane Warren, now in the Lego car himself, is in fifth place here as they head on through Stavelot, through Curve Paul Freya, onto the old circuit. This is where the old track rejoins where they cut through on the redesign of this one, and heading towards the ferocious, the magnificent Blanchemont corner. It's not flat out in these cars. Little touch of the brakes, get the weight over the front to help them turn in. Through there they go onto the brakes for the bus stop chicane. This is one of your overtaking spots, and if anybody on the last lap is going to try and think of making a move, that will be the last spot that they'll do it.
Well, Heat 1, lap 2 of 6. It's not a long race, but it is a long lap, and there's a lot left to go as Sebastian Job sits behind the rookie leader, Charlie Collins, and a chance again for the draft. Another man, we talked about it, who's also was third last year in the championship and having a poor season in terms of results. Sitting in third place, Alejandro Sanchez. Both he and Sebastian will be hoping to relinquish points. Again, this is just a sprint race, but it's only a reverse top 8, so we have to keep an eye on how De Jong and, Josh Rogers work their way back through the field. Currently, Josh Rogers sits in 35th. I'm trying to find on this.
De Jong 1 place ahead.
In front. Yeah, he's just ahead.
Here comes Job, and he's not going for the move. He's content to stay behind. He's saving this for towards the end of the race because you don't want to find yourself in the lead on the last lap going up the Kemmel Straight with a whole drafting pack right behind you. You can get freight train here.
Yeah, the one who actually has kind of the key component in this battle is actually Sanchez in third, because Job can sit there, and you're right, he'll be happy to do so knowing that that draft is still there. Well, hopefully he thinks, and if all goes well, will be still there on the last lap, and then he can make his move. But if Sanchez starts to do the same to him and put him under pressure, well, then Job's got to do something about it. Then he's got to try and get by Collins, and then he's the target going into the last lap. So Sanchez can actually be a bit cheeky in this and potentially use that draft to play both in front of them against themselves.
Multiple-time iRacing World Champion Martin Kronka in 10th place ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr. Tommy Erstgaard, of course, race winner in the feature race here in Season 1 in 2019. He's in 12th place. Ahead of Salva Tellens, another one of your rookies, working their way through the chicane there. And, well, some call it Piff Paff. It's Campus is the name of that chicane. But you've got to settle yourself into a rhythm here, but it's hard to get into a rhythm with so few laps to be able to get your head down here.
Yeah, you just got to be on it. I mean, that's why these guys are the best at their craft. This is why the PESC series, the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, is so renowned and so vicious and brutal in terms of being unforgiving, because you have to be on it. As soon as the lights go out, I always say, when the lights go green, it's time to get mean. Well, these guys have to be mean and then some, because they've got to be so focused.
Connery, what have you been hearing?
Well, we have the man I'm going to talk about up on screen for you now, embroiled in that battle for P10 with Martin Kronke. Kevin Ellis Jr., he was given a bit of a pre-race as he was taking to the start of the grid, given a speech by his team boss saying, look, we can get through the fields, we don't have to worry about this potentially poor qualifying. There's a lot of overtaking opportunities and a lot of the pack will keep itself together in some respects because of the draft. And the last comment was, we have to get to Kronke, and we can. So, top 10 finish on the cards for Kevin Ellis Jr.
Thank you very much, Connery. And yeah, that's again, as we see, Job just happened to sit behind. But Matt, that's crucial here. We saw that at Interlagos from Kevin, didn't we? We saw him. He had to work his way through to give himself the chance of then in the feature race having the reverse grid and a chance of winning. So we've seen it from him before. He can do it again here.
Yeah, he's also quite good in the early stages of a race, but with the 6 laps, again, longer lap, it's about now that he's going to have to make hay while the sun shines, as they say, because this is when he's usually on the attack. Just to note as well, Mitchell DeYoung down to 35th now. He's lost another spot. Josh Rogers up too. I don't think they're going to get through. I don't think there's enough time for them to be anywhere near the consideration. So it's really conservation mode for them in the points. A little bit further back, Daniel Lafluente, we saw him almost 3 wide down the Kendall Straight as he chases Maximilian Beneke. This is the battle for 14th. Quite a few notable drivers in that, including Graham Carroll, who qualified well down the order, I think almost 20th position. And then just in front of him as well is, I was going to say David Williams, but that's Jamie Fluke, who you touched on a little bit earlier on in qualifying, trying to make best of his situation. But lots and battles all the way through. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, okay, that's the teammate, Talons, that was in front. I thought that was Sanchez that fell down the order, but it's not. It's the exact same identical team car with a different number, and that is what I should be looking for.
Well, the Spaniard, the rookie to the series, is there, right close with them. But yeah, Beneke, Lafuente, Fluke, Carroll, Tetela, Backham, Walters, Ramstein. He is the on board with Alejandro Sanchez, though. This is the man who's in a bit of the hot seat here. When it's 2 laps to go and you're in 3rd place with a slipstream, a double draft from those in front, that's sometimes the best place to be with 2 to go.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, the man in 4th has now done, for the 2nd time in this race, the fastest lap, Jeremy Bouteloup, who's getting the draft from all of them. But as I said, Sanchez really holds the cards here, because if he can get close enough to put Job under pressure, Job's going to have to react to that. And in order to react and go forward, well, there's a car in the way. He's got to get to first, and then he's in this, again, that endangered position with the draft. But I think Sanchez, that's a great run, though, through Eau Rouge. I was going to say he's too far back. He might still get enough slipstream here. Job's certainly on the move. He could be close enough to go. Does he sit? Does he stay content? I think this time he might try and just maybe stick the nose in.
No, he's staying there.
Yeah,
he's happy there. He wants to go. Final lap is going to be go time for Sebastian there. That's when you want to be making that move.
And that was when Sanchez unfortunately lost 2 or 3 car lengths there. That's why I was wondering about his run. That's when he should have pushed Job into making that move a lap earlier than he wants to now. Next time by its last lap, well, Job's got nowhere to go but the lead, so he may have lost his chance.
Oh, the back end of that car in front. Oh, we've got a car off. That's the 31. That's going to be David Williams, isn't it? Who's fallen down. That's down at Le Combe. Malmedy behind. There's a big accident. That's going to be that's Brian Lockwood and Ricardo Rico there having that accident on the exit of Malmedy. And that can happen so easily. If you've got the car on the outside up over the curb, it can push you back in, and that can cause contact between two cars there. And one driver who had to work his way through all that was Joshua Rogers. Well, the problem for them is that points on the go down to 20th here in the sprint race, so they're not going to be getting any points. One driver who has got history here, though, Sebastian Job, he got the double race win here last year. He's in that prime position right now.
Absolutely is. And yeah, I think Brian Lockwood's going to have a little bit of opposite lock in that car for the rest of the race after hitting the wall that hard. But it's not really about the points in the sprint race for Rogers or De Jong. Again, Rogers has a fantastic gap at the front of the championship, and he'll be thankful for that today. But it's really about setting themselves as far forward as they can to strike in the feature and still bring home something. But this is the lap that matters. Heading into the final lap already, Charlie Collins a little loose in the chicane. Joel wants to get him on Kemmel straight, though. He does not want to be leading onto Kemmel, and this time Alejandro Sanchez is very close behind. I think you're going to see this draft train turn into a quick fan toward the corner very quickly.
First to 31st are covered by less than 9 seconds. That is one long queue of traffic that you're seeing out there. On the final lap of this heat race, this sprint race here, Collins was trying to break the draft there downhill into Eau Rouge Radillon. But how will he cope with the pressure of the former champion? And look at that, Job right up behind. Collins has to go defensive there. He's no option. Here comes the side draft as well from Job. You can make that move around the outside, and he's squeezing Collins, but Collins is squeezing back there as they head into Les Combes. Sebastian Job to the head of the field, but he's got to keep in front out of down the back section through Blanchimont, of course, down into the bus stop chicane. This isn't over yet for the race lead here, Matt.
Not at all. Great driving from both. You said it. He pinches him to the inside. Doesn't want to let him open the corner. But great braking from Collins. Knew that he was going to open the corner himself. Aimed the car accordingly so he could still try to fight for the position into Melamed. Doesn't really go, into his position, but it's not done. If he can still get a draft, there's quite a long run down to Blanchimont as well. But either way, Sanchez is hoping to get one more. He would have expected more in that battle.
Well, they're heading through campus once again. Collins using the curb. Everyone else avoiding it a little bit there. You can put the car on that curb and help you around that corner into Stavelot. The corner closest to the town of Stavelot, of course, and then through Curve Paul Freya, this fast right-hander. You've got to carry that speed, and Collins slid a little bit on the exit of the Curve Paul Freya. That's just gapped out Job just that little bit, but he has got the slipstream here now as they head in towards Blanchimont for the final time in the sprint race, and he is looking racy here. The youngster wants to get himself his first ever win here in the championship, but he's staying in line. Sanchez having to go defensive behind from Jeremy Bootsloop, but at the front, the Englishman Sebastian Job is going to take victory here in the sprint race with Charlie Collins in second place. It's a British 1-2 ahead of Alejandro Sanchez, the Spaniard, third place, battling further down. Josh Rogers, the championship leader. Where is he across the line? He is 26th in that race. No points scored for him there in that opening race, all from one incident on the starting on the first lap of this race. But there's your results then. It's a British 1-2 there for Job and Collins, with Sanchez, the Spaniard, in third place. Jeremy Bootsloop is a European flavour at the top of that standings in fourth place. Dane Warren then breaks that up, the Australian, in fifth, ahead of Aisha Guven from Turkey. Jeff Gyasi from Brazil ahead of Zach Campbell, the American. Johan Hart in ninth place from France. And Kevin Owens Jr., Scotland, rounding out your top 10. But Matt, as we look through the rest of those standings, I mean, we want a drama, and we got it.
I don't want to be in that Coanda house for the debrief. Even worse that they're in the same room now. It's great when everything's going well and the camaraderie, you can build off each other, but man, oh man, now you gotta live with each other and live with that one for a bit. And I think they'll come to the conclusion pretty quickly on what happened to that one when they look back on it. But I do want to point out to you guys that had a great race today. Ike and Guven
Yeah.
In 6th place, that's huge for him because he's battling for that top 20 bubble. 15 points for that position in the sprint race. And just behind him, Jeff Gyasi, a great result, who has always been there or thereabout. They're both going to have great starting positions in the feature race with a reverse top 8. But yeah, Aiken Guven getting those 15 points, that's going to move him very close to requalifying for next year if he can continue on that form.
Matt, take it away. We've got our race winner.
We do indeed. We'll get right to it. Sebastian Job obviously need a little bit of luck to get back in this championship, but you may have gotten some there. Talk us through your opinion on the incident.
Yeah, I've already had a quick look back because I straight away wanted to see, and from my point of view, I'm sure they'll disagree, but Mitchell just kind of moved out and in front of me and then pressed the brake, and I had no time to react. I've even checked my onboard and I tried to move to the right, but there's no time to react there. You can't react that fast. And when you've got a car on your inside, I don't think you can really block like that in the braking zone or just before a braking zone. So yeah, it's very unfortunate. Obviously not my intention, but yeah, just glad to kind of deal with it and get the race win when there was a chance to gain some crucial points.
Talk us through prep, because obviously you and Graham work together a lot. Graham's been busy with a ton of other racing, and it's build week. How difficult has it been to really dial things in for Spa this time around? Last year, double winner here. This time you're off to a good start. Is it smooth sailing, or was there a lot more that went into it for setup this time?
No, this time it was a lot more simple than the previous rounds. The cars had a couple of changes, which just made it a bit more simple. The starts changed, which luckily we managed to figure out. Seems like everyone did though, so it's not really an advantage to be found there. Yeah, it was pretty simple. Graham was doing Formula E this week, so he's not had a load of time, so it's been a bit lonesome, but it's not a problem. But yeah, I think the preparation was pretty good. I was really enjoying practicing this week, so yeah, I felt the pace was good, and I think it showed in that race.
Well, I appreciate that you shaved and cleaned up for us, and you got the first win of the day. Best of luck. Spa's a mean beast in the draft, but we'll see how the reverse grid goes for you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So yeah, thank you very much to our race winner there for that one. That's 3 in a row now here at Spa for Sebastian Job. But stick around, because we have got the feature race coming up after these. Welcome back to Spa-Francorchamps then, and well, Matt and Connery here to discuss that first race. And I mean, we've heard what Matt has had to say about that incident. Connery, I mean, have you been hearing anything, or what were your thoughts on that lap one incident then?
We've been listening to the radios in and amongst the little break that we've just had, and it seems like up and down the grid, no matter what channel we dip into, the conversation has been that incident between Joshua Rogers and Mitchell de Jong. That has been the main talking point, and for good reason. You know, top 2 in the championship, top 2 in the race at the time, finding themselves both in the gravel trap at Bruxelles at lap 1. That is a hugely dramatic moment, and it might be a bit of a turning point over the course for the rest of this season. Of course, we've only got a couple of rounds to go, but another error or so like that, especially for Mitchell de Jong. Not so much Rogers, given that he has quite a healthy points buffer, but another error piled on top of that. That might bring Kevin Ellis Jr., Sebastian Job back into the championship picture coming into the final couple of rounds. So this is a sort of wake-up moment right now for those two, especially. They can't put a foot wrong now from this point forwards. Otherwise, they'll have other 3rd, 4th, 5th parties hot on their heels for the championship.
Well, it was marked down as one of my talking points for this round. These final few rounds now, for all the championship contenders, is going to be huge because they can't afford to have mistakes that cost them big points here. They need to be scoring points and scoring good points if you're the chasers, whereas Rogers, he just needs to be steady away, just chip away and just get close to that championship map.
Yeah, and I said he'll be very thankful for the buffer that he has today, because you're dead right. He doesn't need to do much. This is like exactly what he doesn't want to happen. Thankfully, he can afford it a bit, but yeah, worst case scenario for him, undoubtedly. The only thing I will say about the incident, because I do still think the responsibility lies on Mitchell in that for making a late move. The one thing that could have caught him out is, you know, he's threading a moving target, right? And he's trying to get between the two of them. He may have been caught out by the braking of Josh Rogers a little bit in front of him on the opening lap, and maybe was trying to react and get into that hole. I didn't see the onboard, but even still, if that's the case, I mean, you have to anticipate that being the car behind. You have to drive to the space available, and ultimately, he still made a move too late. So whether or not it was him going for the position or reacting to his teammate, it doesn't change that it still kind of lies on him, but it'd be interesting to see his thought.
And of course, Connery, we've seen some really good results for some of those drivers who we've been seeing further down the order during the first half of the championship. Ayachan Govan, what a performance from him, finishing up there at the top of the standings. It's great stuff for him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see some of these drivers perhaps more used to being in the mid-pack start to rise to the top, and that's usually thanks to a good qualifying session and be able to avoid incidents as well, because it seems like the better you are avoiding incidents in that mid-pack, the better your finishing result. Funny that, but that's just the situation there in that mid-pack. Going back to that incident between Rogers and de Jong, though, I gotta say I do agree with you two. At the time, it was Mitchell de Jong just coming across a little bit. There was still more than, well, there's a lane and even a bit more that Job left, and of course he was closing in a little bit coming into the braking zone, but the major movement was made by de Jong coming across. So yeah, it looked like on first thought that Job had just run into the back of de Jong, that then sent de Jong into Rogers, but on the replays, well, it showed a different story, didn't it?
Yeah, and it's difficult too because it is a downhill braking point into a relatively, medium speed corner, but a relatively quick entry. So it's not like you can just add more brake bias, or more brake pressure, excuse me. You're already pretty heavy on the nose of the car, so it's not going to react super well to that. And then it possibly, if he does that, makes the incident even worse, because then he steers or careens right into both of them locking up. So yeah, not much Job could do, I think, in that situation.
Speaking of brake bias, though, sorry to interrupt that, Paul, but I did get a report from Kevin Ellis Jr. again during that race, is that he had the wrong brake bias set for the majority of that event, and he's wondering why the car was feeling a little bit sluggish in some corners, especially on entries, and that was why he just had it set to the wrong position.
Interesting too, because I mean, you can bring up the F8 box in game and see that brake bias on screen. So obviously, he's got a different telemetry setup he uses that he didn't spot that right away.
Well, I mean, you managed to curse him in race 1 then with the safe guess, Connery. Josh Rogers for race 2 victory, as we actually get a look at the live points as well, Connery.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that Kevin Ellis Jr., where's he starting? Quite far down the grid. He's starting in P26. I don't think even a man of his caliber will be able to work things up to the front for 26. So I don't think so, but it should be a spicy battle at the front as we get a look at the points.
Yeah, absolutely. So after all of that, Joshua Rogers has actually pulled out a further 2 points over Mitchell de Jong from the qualifying points that he gained there in qualifying. Sebastian Job now 107 points behind, with Kevin Ellis Jr. 105. It's getting a little bit closer. They need to really have a good, solid feature race. And speaking of the feature race, here's the grid for that. The American Zach Campbell sharing front row with Jeff Gyasi, Ayachan Guvan and Dane Warren row 2 ahead of Jeremy Bootlub and Alejandro Sanchez. Row 4, Charlie Collins and Sebastian Job, your race winner. Then Johan Hart, Kevin Ellis Jr. with Krunka and Østgaard. Rest of your field will be working their way through your screen right now. Thomas Tetteler on row 9 for him. Max Ramstein in there, row 10. He got himself a couple of points there. That'll help him towards the championship. As we head towards the bottom of the field, there you go. Josh Rogers, row 13 for him. Mitchell de Jong, row 15 for him. But we're getting set for the start of this one. Last couple of rows of the grid up on screen there for you. Very quickly, Matt, in fact, we're not going to have time because the drivers are all set for this one. The feature race here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing is go once again down towards La Source. We have got a car stuck on the back of the grid. Thibaut Casabon is not moving anywhere. Hopefully he'll be able to get that car out of the way before the field come through. But we're 3 wide into Lecombe. Oh my goodness, Zach Campbell, your pole sitter is off. Big contact into the wall. Who is that? That's Dane Warren, the Australian, off in the wall. There's more contact. More cars losing it, trying to avoid everything. It's carnage at Lecombe.
Yeah, I don't think the Lego blocks will go back together on that car quite so easily with a hit into the wall like that. That's just an unfortunate situation of 3 into 1, and the slightest contact put Zach Campbell on the outside of the curb, but in the middle, rejoining the track, that's where the incident really came, and then Warren gets pushed off, and as you say, everyone reacting to it down the order led to a bit more drama, but man, oh man, the slightest touch and the biggest response to it. Look at Sebastian Job. He's already back up to P2. Remember, reverse top 8. He started 8th position in this race, and he's managed to thread the needle somehow in all that drama and find himself unscathed and in a fantastic position already. Who else in front of them? Alejandro Sanchez.
Well, Ayachan Guvan and Dane Warren have ended up taking a tour back to the pits out of that incident, but we've got battling at the front, we've got battling in the mid-packs as well. This is tremendous stuff here on the opening lap. Of course, cold tyres for these drivers, and La Fuente is going side by side with Martin Krunka. We saw as they were going through shot, you can see that bright green car in the background of the shot there. He is battling away with Martin Krunka. Thomas Tetteler and Graham Carroll, they're battling as well. So we've got side-by-side action further down your field, but at the front, Alejandro Sanchez, Sebastian Job, Charlie Collins, they're all trying to break away. Tommy Østgaard trying to make moves now with Johan Hart, Kevin Ellis Jr. and Max Benneker up there in 8th place. As out the chicane they go for the first time, and it is Sanchez in the lead, the Spaniard. He's going to have a lot of pressure coming from behind now.
This has done well to bring a few people through the order. Mac Backham still trying to make the most of the situation back in 15th, Jamie Fluke 14th. Getting word that on the grid for Thibaut Casabon was a mechanical error of some sort, hardware related. So, unfortunate situation. We talk about this in sim. It seems so unfair, but so too do mechanical issues in the real world. It's just unlucky at that point. Sebastian wants to go early. He's going to get a run on Sanchez, and immediately behind Charlie Collins. I was going to say Zach Campbell, the other rookie, but Charlie Collins getting in that hole that's being punched by the Red Bull Porsche and trying to get a position out of this as well. Sanchez still has a bit of an overlap. Job therefore has to leave a bit more space, trailing the break through the second part of the complex, and he'll manage to take the lead. But 12 laps, it's not a lead that's safe, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Zach Campbell, of course, the man who went and had that contact into Lecombe. He finds himself in 4th place at the moment, so he wasn't affected too badly by that incident that happened up there on lap 1. But plunging downhill from Czechiak's corner in towards Pouan, we're going to have a look at what happened then on lap 1 at the Lecombe chicane, Lecombe complex. Full screen here on the Vodafone Replay, and here's Dane Warren involved in this one. We'll have a focus because it was Ayachan Guvan who ended up in the grass, and well, it was him coming across the track. But unfortunately, innocent party Dane Warren got wiped out there.
Yeah, that's just, it's a super unfortunate situation. Again, it was the slightest of touch. Zach Campbell took to the grass immediately, but the curb dislodging a few people in that situation after the contact happened. And really, I said it, more contact further back, I think. If we look deep down in the field, it's Josh Rogers we're looking at trying to make his way through the order, and I saw a car spinning off behind at Stavlo too. So, and I'm not sure who it was. It is Jamie Sedgwick as we're jumping back on.
Yeah, it was Jack Sedgwick. Sorry, excuse me. He went flying off into the gravel. Doesn't appear to have too much damage though, so be able to carry on. He is the championship leader, trying to work his way through. So, as you mentioned, then Rogers up to 20th, looking for 20th place, should I say? Scrapping away with David Williams. The exit that he gets out of the bus stop chicane. And moving forward, so up to 20th for Rogers. Mitchell de Jong, he finds himself in 18th place, so he's been working forward as well. Rogers, he's battling with Walters here, and he's just got himself stuck behind for the time being. We're going to get another Vodafone replay here then.
Yeah, on board car 92, Joshua Rogers. You want to talk about how close it is in racing, especially in a series like this? He already got taken out in the first race by no fault of his own, and in this time, the contact up front, oh my God, how does he find a way through? Well, I think that's the smart. Good discretion, goes immediately to the grass. Very good track knowledge as well. He knows there's that small section of asphalt he can immediately rejoin, so it's not like he's sliding around and sideways when he rejoins. That's a smart move. Very, very good racecraft.
As Sanchez coming under pressure from Collins here. This is down at Brussels. And Sanchez, I feel that Job maybe thinks that he is faster than Sanchez and will try and break away. But if Sanchez and Collins start battling away and slowing each other down, they will allow Job to run away with this one.
You're always... Sebastian knows that battle has nothing to do with him, but when you look in the mirrors and you see two cars going that deep into the breaking point, he would have been holding his breath, hoping that neither of them locked up, because he could have easily been collected by one of the two if they did. But great move by Sanchez to get back up. He does not want to give away points again this weekend either. He knows Montreal. He had a great chance near the front, as too did Sebastian. They both took damage, and guess what? Josh Rogers had some unfortunate issues that weekend as well. Last race in the championship, it's 2 weeks ago. I know it seems like ages, but he managed to battle back and make the most of it. This time, they need to capitalize. We're running out of time for both these drivers.
So heading through, there you see Sanchez looks so calm and just composed there, does Sanchez. The focus. Whereas, look at Job. He's calm and focused, but look at the amount of movement in that wheel there.
Seb's the only driver in iRacing I know that can get away with that. You need to be smooth to be fast in iRacing. It is a platform that really does reward, I don't want to say under-driving, but a smoother driving style. I tend to be a little more erratic and I struggle with tires. Sebastian makes it work. Look how much hand movement he puts into the wheel. He does look a little bit more stressed than normal. Maybe it's the lack of the, we'll call it a beard. It's incredible the way he's able to extract speed from that car while keeping it so balanced on the tire and not overheating it. So many people try that and fail in this.
As we go through the left-hander at Eau Rouge, up Radion once again. The three of them together, they're not making any moves for the time being. They're just staying there, but Job going defensive, trying to break the draft here up the Kemmel Straight. And Sanchez, does he have a slight bit of damage on the front left of his car, Sanchez, potentially? And that might be from a curb strike. He can get damage to your car from curb strikes, and that can just catch you out and cost you maybe a kilometre or two of speed down the straight.
Quite the battle. Certainly a lot to be played for here. Charlie Collins it was between he and Zach Campbell early in the season for rookie honors, but he has really showcased himself well. Not showcasing themselves well, the car 42 into the wall, and that, I believe, is... That's actually just at this... Yeah, exactly. Cutasoya, but also I was going to say at the top of La Source, so start of the lap.
So let's go around Poulon and let's give you a little bit of a sight of what the drivers can see here around this track. We are going to give you a Vodafone on board. As you saw on that onboard on lap 5 of 12, Jamie Collins worked his way past both Alejandro Sanchez and Sebastian Job there whilst we're on board. And Matt, I mean, Sanchez finds himself now in 3rd place, the place that he was in. In fact, he's having to go defensive here from behind because Østgaard wants a piece of this.
Yeah, absolutely. He has to get a little bit tighter into the chicane. That's going to give him a bit of a problem because he's lost the run now on the 2 at the front, and this is definitely a draft battle. In fact, alongside does go Østgaard, and according to the timing screens, he's slightly ahead at the line, but whether or not that position holds as they get the run down to Eau Rouge, we'll find out. But now we're seeing some animation. I was going to say, this guy's been stoic all day, Sanchez. He hasn't talked in that room. It's like he doesn't have any friends to talk to, but now he's getting quite vocal on the radio as he gets the position back. Oh, okay. Whoo, camera. You're throwing me. I thought he was going around. I thought he might have got tapped at the top, but it's just a camera that's more clever than I. All right, we're good. I'll calm my heart rate down.
But here comes Østgaard then, as Sanchez late on the brakes then, saying, no thank you, I'm not letting you through here. But one thing that this is allowing is for your leaders to pull away. Østgaard was showing his nose, and Charlie Collins has got a slow down penalty here. He's come across the chicane at Les Combes. That's cost him huge here, Charlie Collins. He's dropping all the way down, you feel, down to 9th place he finds himself here, Matt. And that, well, that's up at the chicane at Les Combes. It's so easy to do. Was it a mistake? Was it a little contact? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we need to see it. There's certainly... I don't know. That's huge. I mean, to slow down. And that's how close this series is. A slowdown penalty takes the guy from the lead of the race to 9th. He has to battle back now behind Daniel Lefluente. He's got so many great drivers around him, and he's in the wars. This is a huge change of the order. We're going to get a look at exactly what caused this, because it was almost as if he and Job were running clear at the start of this lap, and we'll see it, obviously, a draft. Job's going to fan out, but where does the contact actually come in?
Oh, right at the end of the braking zone. Collins' movement of the rear end of the car, and he took a big cut across the chicane. He wanted to make sure that he didn't have any chance of spinning that car out. And as I say, that's dropped him down to 9th place.
That's a tough one. I mean, what's he supposed to do in that? I need to see it again, because it did look like Joe might have got into the back of him, and really he's trying to keep the car in a straight line, like you say, and he pays the ultimate price for it. So I don't know if there was anything nefarious or not, but it was hard to even see if there was much of a touch to it, but definitely something that's going to have to be reviewed.
As they head across the line then, halfway point of the race here. Sebastian Job in the lead from Alejandro Sanchez now in 2nd place. Tommy Østgaard, who was pushing for that 3rd place, now finds himself in that position. Max Benneker up 10 places into 4th place. Brilliant stuff from Max there to find himself in 4th place. Zach Campbell 5th ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr., Johan Hart and Daniel Lafuente up 7 places into 8th place. A good opening to the race, but look at this now. Benneker is on the charge in 4th place. He's wanting to move forward. Sanchez is wanting to move forward, so too is Tommy Østgaard in front.
Absolutely, yeah. Benneker always seems to be coming through the order with good efficiency, but so much aggression in his driving style. Does he get a chance to switch it back on David Williams? Not quite. I thought might get a run down the hill. Does force Dave to go a little bit tighter, but you can hold that line. It's more about the exit off the bottom of Rivage / Bruxelles / Brussels, whatever you want to call it these days. The corner down the hill. That's what I'm going with at this point, Paul. But no, you can get a good run. It's more about the exit in that situation, really setting yourself up for the Jackie X corner. And as you see, that gap stabilizes. So couldn't quite get the run, Benneker. He's still in this, though, and he's definitely, this could be his best chance for a win this season. 4th place right now. 5 laps to go. We know how much the draft matters, and if he's got the pace to come through, you'll see him go for moves, I think, pretty aggressively for the next few laps.
Don't count Max out, that's for sure. You never count him out against a race win, especially when you're in a pack like this. 1st to 18th are in a queue. 5.8 seconds cover 1st to 18th here in this race. It is unbelievable how close these drivers are here in this championship. But this is what we've grown to expect from the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. And speaking of those drivers, Zach Campbell, one of your rookies, he's right behind Max right now. He's wanted to get back forward after starting the front of the grid. He'll want to try and progress forward again after that lap 1 incident. But Kevin Ellis Jr., one of those drivers who, again, has been working his way forward, finds himself behind his compatriot from that rail Lenigan even. It's easy for
You'll
me
get
to
there
say.
eventually. RLL.
I need to put the new teeth in, that's for sure. But Zach Campbell.
I won't make
Kevin
a joke
Ellis
about
Jr.
British people with that comment. I won't do it. I would never stoop to that level.
Oh, speaking of Ellis Jr., I've just seen there on the left-hand side in timing order, he's dropped down to 18th here, so something has happened down at the hairpin, turn 1. Kevin Ellis Jr. then down to 18th. Something has happened into La Source. I'm sure we'll get a look at that at some point, but then he's found himself, he's plunged down from that 7th place down to 18th. That is not what he would want here today.
No, not at all. There's a few things we're definitely going to have to look at. I fully admit, I didn't quite get the production feed loading correctly. That's on my end. My internet just dropped. I didn't see the full incident with Sebastian Job versus Collins, and now we've got drama going on with Kevin Ellis Jr., another front runner in this championship. So today has been anything but ordinary in PESC, and still continuing as Beneka has to go slightly defensive from Zach Campbell, trying to show the nose on the run down the hill yet again. Jackie X corner, and Beneka can't quite get close enough to Tommy Østgaard. I called him David Williams last time, team car. But Tommy Østgaard, who's just getting enough to stay where he is, not close enough to really attack Sanchez, but still sitting on the podium at this point.
Well, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but these final 4 rounds of the championship are a true minefield here for the drivers. They're all tricky tracks. They've all got their unique challenges, and Spa is just seeming to bring this feature race to life here with a few incidents in this race, and it's so easy to find yourself in an incident without it being any of your fault there, Matt.
That's racing. I used to have a coffee mug. It was actually my dad's, and I stole it. Now I claim it as my own, but it says "That's racing" on it, because that is racing. Sometimes you just got to say poop happens, for lack of a better term. So you get caught up in incidents all the time, especially when you're in such a close race, and there's such little margin for error, and everyone is so on it. So look back at this very slight tap, bit aggressive to try and get it down the inside of braking. Partly defensive, but the move was never on. Well,
that was Charlie Collins just getting into the back of Johan Hart, actually. I thought it was, and that's what pushed him into Ellis there. Speaking of championship contenders, look at that, Jamie Fluke pushing your championship leader, Josh Rogers, all the way to the edge of the track. Fluke is not going to make things easy here for Josh, but Josh to the outside, and here's Mitchell de Jong looking to get involved in this one as well. Fluke, though, staying ahead, the Northern Irishman ahead of the Australian, and then the American Mitchell de Jong right behind. He's wanting a piece of this action. Rogers and de Jong want as many points as possible here, and Rogers now in the slipstream up the Kemmel Straight, but we'll look forward because Sanchez is making moves. Tommy Østgaard and Max Beneka are making moves as well behind them, because Beneka has moved ahead of Østgaard, so that's up to 3rd place. Although this one isn't done yet. Look at that, Zach Campbell, he's got nowhere to go in this one, and Østgaard to the inside of Brussels, but that will give him the outside for Jackie X, but Beneka a little bit wide, and that's back down to 4th place. We're back as we were. Beneka
knows he doesn't. The middle part of the lap where we're coming into now, sector 2 onward, Beneka's not quite as quick, and he knows he has to make it work on Kemmel, so forced the move. Didn't quite get it done and nearly lost the car on the curb coming out of Melmedi. I'll never get that right because Jesse Melamed always comes to mind. He's a mountain biker, but he knows he has to get the move done early, and that nearly causes a huge Constantina to go backwards. But battle for the lead on the top screen, battle for 3rd down below. 3rd has more than 2 cars involved in it, because look at the train behind. And that nearly went the way of, as you say, Charlie Collins and Johan Hart, who very quickly nearly capitalized on all of that drama.
Yeah, that's 3rd down to 12th behind right there. So they're rolling a queue here. It's sensational. What this has allowed, it's allowed your front 2 to pull away from this gaggle here on track right now. So there's Job, there's Sanchez, 1st and 2nd place. They need to work together here. They need to not fight here and to try and pull away that little bit more from the rest of them, because Østgaard is putting up a staunch defence in this one. We're going to be 3 to go across the line here. So time is starting to run out for these drivers in this race. Just look at that, just constant queue of Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars as they head on down towards La Source. Just sensational, brilliantly bring this championship year after year to this magnificent facility, and I'm so glad that we get to see the racing around here because it always produces great racing here.
Yeah, absolutely it does. It's been phenomenal today as well. Just to note, Josh Rogers, as you can see him on the screen, back up to 13th place. So another 13 positions made in this race. Max Benecke knows he has to do it on Camel, gets far enough along this time. Gives him the inside though, this time does Østgaard, which means he might try and attack. No, I don't think he has it. I don't think he can attack the second apex. It's job done this time. Now he just has to hold it, keep it smooth. We know that he's not quite as quick from this point on on the lap, so just keep the car positioned well and maybe start to build a gap over the next few laps. Yeah, you can see it already. Tommy Østgaard starts to throw the nose up the inside just a little bit to sell the dummy and put pressure on.
Yeah, but you know, Max Benecke, he's an experienced hand at this. He knows how to deal with that pressure. We saw last season he wasn't at his best and just cracked a little bit under that pressure last season, but he seems to have maybe just dialed things back just a little bit, and he's been a little bit more consistent. He just needs to find that little tenth or two of pace to get him back to that front pack on pace without having to rely on an incident here.
There's a difficult trade-off as well, just to go to Benecke's point, because we could see his car's drafting very well down Kendall, but he didn't quite have the mid-corner. Now, is that a result of dirty air, or is that car trimmed out more? Because we'll find out over these next few laps. If he's able to get consistent laps in now that he's outside of that dirty air in the corners, then we'll know that car is actually a good race car, and he can maybe start to pull a gap behind him. But if he was relying on draft as his tactic, being deeper in the field and maybe trimmed that car out a bit, now he's a sitting duck because he's not close enough at all to the guys in front.
Well, we've got reports coming in. Connery, what have you got for us?
Well, we saw Maximilian Benecke get that pass done, but it wasn't without a lot of frustration and a lot of hard work. Let's take a listen.
Warren, leave space or get faster.
So yeah, so some choice words there from Maximilian Benecke. It just goes to show that how hot under the collar some of these drivers get and how high the stakes are, especially when you're at the very front of the field, just like these guys.
Yeah, the prize money that's on offer in this championship, there's prize money but also prize as well. It really does put the pressure on these drivers, and you have to perform at the absolute limit of the rules and of your driving, and we're seeing that here as Sanchez having a look down the inside and going to the lead. That was facilitated by Joe.
Yeah, this isn't Joe panicking at all. He lifts a bit there. You can tell he definitely lost some pace at the end of the straight very intentionally, so he's setting himself up for a move. 2 to go. Sanchez is going to want to drive the wheels off this car this lap to try and prevent that from happening. But yeah, that radio message from Max was something like, Tommy, Max is faster than you. Can you confirm you've understood this message? I think that's what he was trying to get at.
My goodness, that's going back 2010 German Grand Prix.
Wow.
The reference there. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm an Alonso fan for life, so I will never forget.
But it's not about Alonso here. It's about Sebastian Job and Alejandro Sanchez, his countryman, the Spaniard now, to the front of your field. And Job, as I say, he facilitated that move. He was happy with them going past there because he wants that slipstream on the final lap. But here, Benecke, Østgaard, neck and neck, fighting it out as they're heading towards Stavolo. Penultimate time here in this race. Time is running out, and perhaps Østgaard is in that prime spot here, Matt, to move himself forward back into a podium position here.
Yeah, we're going to come into a really nail-biting battle all the way back. You can tell Max definitely has a bit of pace in that car. Is still not quite getting as much of a gap in the second part of the lap, but should have enough to hold on for third. It's Campbell that you've got to watch. But meanwhile, at the front, calculated, calm, controlled, Sebastian Job gets in behind Alejandro Sanchez, who's not been able to break away, and now it's a game of cat and mouse. I almost expected Sanchez to try and maybe lift and force Seb to go by before the start of this lap, but he hasn't done it, so there's a bit of a gap for them to do so. Now it's just gloves off.
Here we go then. Last lap, the last opportunity up the Kemmel Straight for Sebastian Job to possibly get a double once again, but we'll have to see how he does it. He doesn't want to be too close going into Eau Rouge. He wants to carry the speed through this corner at Radion, carry it all the way up the hill, and it is a steep hill up here, up the Kemmel Straight. You do not believe it. Here comes Job then with that run, with the slipstream. He's going to get ahead. Is he going to chop off the nose? Well, he's not going to, because Sanchez still slight advantage there. Little bit of nose. There's a little rub there between the two of them, and Sanchez is making the move. He's trying to take the opportunity. Still neck and neck between them, but Job could get the run off of the corner at Malmedy, and that gets him to the head of your field. But Sanchez is feisty. He will fight this one back. Through they go. Bruxelles now. Jackie X corner. Final time. The car wants to understeer through here. It's always been a tricky corner. Down, plunge downhill towards Pouon for the final time. Double apex. Left-hander. Neck and neck. Job, the Englishman from East Grandstand. You've then got Alejandro Sanchez, the Spaniard, behind. He is putting the pressure on. He's trying to set himself up for a run out of curve of Paul Freya. This is what he's doing here. Just keep himself close enough. But Sebastian Job just so focused, running his lines perfectly here. Through Stavolo, final time. Curveball Freya, maybe let the car run a little bit wide. Yep, Job does. Sanchez doesn't. He gets it a little tighter, but here's where the slipstream comes into effect now. Can Sanchez get close enough out of Blanchimont to get a run into the bus stop chicane for the final time? He cut a little bit of grass there for Sanchez. Job is going defensive here. Sanchez having to go the long way around into the bus stop chicane. It's absolutely neck and neck between the two of them. Job's going to have to give space. Sanchez is on the inside, but Job gets a run out of the corner and across the line, and it's going to be Sebastian Job with yet another double at Spa-Francorchamps in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. Absolutely sensational between the two of them. Brian Lockwood battling away with Ricardo Castrolado through the bus stop chicane for the final time. They're going to sort themselves out. And Mitchell de Jong, only 25th. That's one championship point for him out of this race. But sensational stuff at the front of your field from Sebastian Job and Alejandro Sanchez.
Yeah.
Brilliant between those two.
All is fair at love and war. A little bit of contact, but totally fair game between them in the La Source complex. Start of the lap, and what a finish. I thought Sanchez might have gotten him on the run from the exit, but the other aspect you had to consider was there was a bit of grass clipped on the entry at Blanchimont by Sebi, and Sanchez nearly gets into that, which could have been drama for both.
Well, these drivers here from RLL, from Apex, and from MSI Esports, remembering the passing of one of their teammates' family members, and they're giving themselves a little bit of a drive here. Let's just take this in. Well, that team showing support for their teammates there, and after the passing of their family members. But Here are your championship results for the feature race here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. It's Sebastian Job only just by 1.5 ahead of Alejandro Sanchez. What a sensational finish between those two. The German Max Benneker manages to hold on to finish in 3rd place ahead of the Norwegian Tommy Østgaard. The Brit Charlie Collins, he was a challenger in the first race. A mistake in this race cost him down to 5th place. The American Zach Campbell 6th ahead of the Finn Thomas Tetela. Great result for him in 7th ahead of the Scotsman Graham Carroll. Diogo Pinto and Johan Hart round out your top 10 there, Matt. But yeah, great result for Thomas Tetela. We didn't talk about him all race there, but tremendous result in 7th.
Yeah, I was going to mention it quickly because that's 2 weekends in a row now, and especially in the feature race, that he's done very, very well. So good late season surge for him, coming to terms perhaps with the racing, just the aggression that's needed, when to make moves, when not to, and definitely maybe something to translate forward, not only for the last few rounds, but into the next season as well. We've certainly seen people like Mitchell DeYoung keep that form going, so definitely good momentum. And another one as well, Graham Carroll. I know we talk him up a lot, but did well to get through the field also because he had a pretty poor day, I think, overall, and we didn't mention him much. And I think he was 15th with about 3 laps to go and found himself up in P8. So another good point-scoring finish for him, but Job did exactly what he needed. He gets a double again at Spa, and with a little bit of luck, it was exactly the circumstances that Joshua Rogers didn't need. But as a result of it, okay, yes, it's still a full race in hand for Rogers, which is a lot, but Job is back in this, at least for consideration.
Yeah, Job has gained an absolute ton of points there. He's 99 points behind Josh Rogers, with Mitchell DeYoung now falling down to 3rd place. Kevin Ellis Jr., that cost him that issue at La Source, down to 4th place, 131 points off of Josh Rogers in the end there. So it's going to be tricky to try and catch. I want to just quickly point out as well, in 9th place, Diogo Pinto made the most positions, second most positions in that race, but to finish 9th was great for him. And Johan Hart, Martin Kronke feeling the pressure now because they're down in 19th and 20th place. But those are your up-to-date point standings here. Let's head on over to the Buzz post-race show here on the Porsche and iRacing social media and media channels. But let's have a look first of all before we get into the interviews here, Matt. That ending.
Well, this is what I want to talk about. So just before that, there's a point I'll come back to, but it's so difficult to follow. In this corner, Blanchimont, you got to nail it. Look at that. He's on the grass at that point. He could have easily lost the car, and he's still got a good run. Job as well, I think we couldn't really see it from there, had his front right off on well past the white line, which is totally fair in that situation, but could have easily disrupted him. But how close was this exit? Job just gets enough, keeps it well within the limits of the track, and that pinches Sanchez, who couldn't quite get the power down as much as he would have liked.
Yeah, that was tremendous stuff between the two of those on that final lap there. But Matt, we'll take it away with your race winner.
Absolutely, Sebastian Job. We speak again. Perfect weekend. Well, I suppose not qualifying, but pretty close to a perfect weekend for you. Started second row and then both wins for the second season in a row at Spa.
Yeah, not quite as good as last year, so work to do. But no, it was a really good result. But firstly, just want to say I'm very, very, very sorry to Charlie. He's a rookie in this series, and you'd think I was the rookie from that driving, and that he won it last year because just terrible. I kind of missed my braking point, just shoved him off the road. Not how I want to win a race. He should have been up there fighting for the win. So yeah, very sorry.
I was going to ask about that too, because obviously for him, unfortunately, it means he has to take evasive action to keep the car in control, and then gets hit with the slowdown. And I did want your thoughts on it, so it's good that you touch on it. But is that something that, how does that get addressed in the future down the line? Is that something that you think is going to come back to haunt you with the VRS guys, or is this hopefully just a water off the back?
I hope it doesn't. I hope a grudge isn't held. I'm going to get a qualifying ban next round, I'm pretty sure now. So
yeah, I guess that's more where I was going, is if there's penalties.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll get a qualifying ban, which is fair. So yeah, no complaints. But yeah, it'll at least still make for a fun race wherever the next track is, because I have no idea. Hopefully it's Le Mans, so I can do some passing. But yeah.
Not Le Mans. You're 2 away from Le Mans. It's a little bit narrower and longer than that, to give you a hint. Yeah, so we'll see how that fares.
Not good timing.
No, not good timing, but good race. At least you closed a lot. 99 points back now overall, but 20 points or more gained on Rogers. So good racing overall today, Sebastian.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm glad he brought that up first because it was a bit of an awkward point. I didn't want to, take a bit off of the win, but Alejandro Sanchez, great weekend for you. Another one who's, we saw it last year, 3rd in the championship. You've got great pace, but needed a really good, consistent weekend, and you got it here. In fact, nearly got the chance for the win in both races.
Yeah, really happy to get a double podium finish this weekend. Got really lucky in the first lap with the incident of the Coanda guys. I managed to avoid everything, don't know how, but did it. And then it was just a matter of pulling away from the group with Seb and just trying to not get into too many fights and letting Tommy and Max catch up to us. But in the end, it was a nice fight, and congratulations to him. Really nice pace and good fight.
Was there more maybe you wanted to do? Because obviously Seb didn't want to be in the lead going on to the last lap, and very cleverly kind of made that easy for you to get by. But was it a bit of a cat and mouse game at that point, or did you just want to keep the foot in it and not let the guys behind even have a chance at it?
Yeah, I wanted to throw him off because I knew he will want to be in first for the last lap, but I wanted to sort of disrupt things a little bit and try to be in first for the last lap. But in the end, it was worth it staying in second. But had to try, and but didn't want to lose too much time, and so did Seb because he let me by as soon as I got side by side with him in the next to last lap. So
Mm-hmm. And how's the new build been for you? We touched with Sebastian a little bit about it earlier, but obviously shorter time period on working at setup this time because we get into the week 13 now on iRacing. And that does change things for you in preparation, but how comfortable were you with the car this week?
I was decently comfortable because I didn't have much time to practice with some real-life commitments. And I was very happy to have my teammates from MSI and Apex make a very good setup for this week. So it was just a matter of getting used to the car and finding pace. It's better now that the clutch acts realistically. It has taking some things off the equation, so I'm really happy with that. It's back to how it was last year, more or less, and that makes me really happy and really glad we got this new build with this all new content and new features.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always great that iRacing's evolving, and it's good to hear you like the change because I think it's a welcome change as well. The clutch especially does kind of brings things back to a more realistic perspective. Great weekend overall, Alejandro. We'll see you next time out for the big one. The big one in terms of track, that is, the Nordschleife.
Yeah, it was really good weekend. We'll see how it goes next time because it's a really tricky track. It's just a matter of staying on track for the next race. So we'll see how it goes.
Perfect. And obviously Nordschleife is going to be a bit of fun, Paul. I'm looking forward to it because it's so much driving involved in such a sensation of speed. Speaking of speed, a man who speeded through the field, in fact, was yelling at other drivers because they weren't fast enough. Max Benecke, you were on a blaze today to get up to the podium position.
It was a good day in the office, but I was not yelling because it was not fast enough. I was yelling because it was just giving me no space 2 times. That's why. But in the end, it worked out. Just a bit unfortunate. I could have battled for P2 or P1, but still happy with the result. Made the most out of it, I guess. But still, I can't be happy with qualifying.
Yeah, I was going to ask that because obviously the build changes. Alejandro just touched on that he likes the changes and that maybe at qualifying can be a bit more realistic now with the tires. Is that something that you agree with, or is it still problems that you need to sort to get quicker and further up the grid?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to make it really a level playing field would be to have it that you just start basically in the last corner, so that you can't warm up any tires, that you can't drive 2 laps and do 1 slower lap, which cools down the tires, which gives you more grip. So there's still, I think, things to work on, but that's what we can discuss afterwards and see what's going to happen. I did my lap normal, but I think others did too. My lap was just not really good. That's the main issue here. But still, things to improve, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And what's the focus for you for the rest of the championship at this point? Where's a realistic target?
Actually, I don't know where I ended up after this race today. So I'm not sure if top 5 is still realistic. I don't know. I have to see afterwards. But that would be obviously great. But there's only 3 races left. So got to see what's happening there. Just do my best, finish as high up in positions as possible, and maybe get another podium. That would be good. And then we'll see where I finish up.
Well, apparently it's 7th, provisionally, obviously, because they have to finalize today, but apparently 7th after today. So top 5 might be achievable after all.
Yeah, could be. I need to see the gaps, but I think we are all pretty close, especially after today. A lot of guys who were normally up in the front now crashed out, had a spin or so. So got to see afterwards. But yeah, still realistic.
Yeah, well, we'll hope for the best. And obviously, Nürburgring comes up next, which is a nice long lap for you to work some magic. Crazy overtaking opportunities there, I dare say.
Yeah, good track for me. Looking forward to it.
I thought it might be. There you go. German at home in Germany next week at the Nordschleife, Paul. But I'm looking forward to it because it's my favorite track in the world. But some of these guys might not have the same opinion. It's going to be very marginal out there.
Yeah, 40 drivers out there, about a second covering them in terms of lap time. On a normal track, this track, it'll look a little bit further with those gaps, but they'll still be really close together out there. But yeah, March 27th, mark it in your calendars because that is one you will not want to miss. It is a truly sensational event and happens to be a day before somebody's birthday in this commentary booth. I couldn't imagine
4 days
that
before
possibly
mine.
is.
Are we sharing a birthday? Are we having a birthday together?
But well, let's have a party virtually. But well. Final thoughts here from today here. We'll bring Connery into this one. Connery, Sebastian Job, he's touched on that. He wasn't happy with what happened between him and Zach, but still, 4 race wins in a row for Sebastian here at Spa-Francorchamps in 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. He's doing all he can, isn't he, to try and make this some little hope that he has at the end of the season to still be in the championship come to fruition. But like he said, you know, he might end up getting a qualifying ban for that move on Charlie Collins. So that will obviously be putting him all the way to the back of the grid at the start of the sprint race at the Nürburgring, which is not the easiest of tracks to try and make forward progress on. So it's going to be a very, very tough spot for Sebastian Job still. Joshua Rogers is still about 99 points ahead, so he still potentially has a chance of sealing this series up with 1 race to spare, potentially. But you know, it has put Joshua Rogers in a little bit more of an awkward spot now because he's kind of shown everyone that he is still human. Even though he's not the one that made the mistake in this race, he was the one that came off the bad end of a mistake from his teammate. So it just goes to show that sort of thing can happen to anyone and it can happen more than once as well. So that's why he has to be very, very careful of coming into these final rounds, that he can't have that happen again. Otherwise, the championship is back and wide open.
Quite a bit of contact out there today, Connery. I noticed you're in the ditch. I assume you were taking cover from all the debris, or?
Yeah, I mean, not so many problems here into Eau Rouge and Radion. Maybe a little bit further up the hill and further down the Camel Straight into the Combe was the main trouble spot here today. But
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of drivers, you know, desperate for those last couple of points here in the final few rounds, try and maybe even secure themselves a ticket into next series as well.
And Matt, just very quickly, Josh Rogers, even though he had those incidents, manages to pull out the championship lead still.
Yeah, it goes to show you just how many guys had other issues. I mean, Mitchell de Jong was the closest competitor. He has a bad day together, quite literally, in that incident. And yes, although Sebastian closes up, the other guys got further away as well. So it still looks like a net gain. It is a net gain in the overall, but Seb's getting a little closer. I mean, look, it's the best of the worst for Rogers to battle back through the pack as he did. Like I say, he just has to get points at this stage in the championship, and he's in a pretty comfy spot.
Well, we had a sensational event here. It's absolutely fantastic to be to you here on iRacing, the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. Well, if you've been enjoying what you've been seeing here today, make sure you go on over to iRacing.com and start your racing career here on iRacing. Remember, every day is race day on iRacing. So head on over iRacing.com for membership deals and even a little bit of money off deal going on at the moment. But brilliant racing, plenty of drama here at Spa-Francorchamps. And well, as you see those closing thoughts here, Well, it is Sebastian Job who gets the wins here, but it's Joshua Rogers who pulls out the championship lead. From everybody here at iRacing and here on the broadcast, this one was for you, Murray. Good night.